we have some very exciting news. We've partnered with the National Trust for Scotland. Joining the Trust with one of their memberships helps to preserve and protect the many amazing, historical and significant sites across Scotland for future generations. Your membership gets you free access to all 500 National Trust locations across the country, as well as free parking. And who doesn't love free parking? A National Trust for Scotland membership is ideal for days out with the family or for saving money on that tour across Scotland that you're taking for your holidays to see all the generally spooky sites, like Culloden Battlefield, Culzean Castle and Glencoe National Nature Reserve. Use the link in our description to get your Trust membership, and you'll be preserving Scotland's history as well as supporting us here at the podcast. Thank you, and happy travels!
Hello everybody!
Welcome to the Season 4 finale of the Generally Spooky podcast.
It's the actual finale. I can't believe it. I don't know how we're here.
At the end of our 4th season.
Yeah, where's the time gone?
This is our 40th main episode.
Oh.
Not including our mini-series that we've done.
That is mental.
40
episodes of listening to Eilidh over there tell me, Kieran, a spooky historical story from Scotland. I'm so excited. I can't believe this is the season finale.
I know. We were talking about it, was it yesterday or the day before, that we always get mixed feelings at the end of a season. That it's sad, but also very exciting. And it's nice to have the break, because we have other projects that are in the offing. But yeah, I'm always sad when we're not recording week on week.
I know.
Because I love it.
It's a strange one. But if you do want to hear more of us, you can come over to Patreon at the end of the season.
Patreon is still going. We will be posting at least twice a week, just indefinitely, with our weekly book club, where I read a chapter of a book once a week. And you can read along or listen along, whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And we have our Wee Blether series, which we've been doing while season 4 has been going, where we just chat once a week. We get together, it's unscripted, we do games, quizzes sometimes.
Yeah, during the main season we talk about the episodes and any like extra bits or other tangents we want to go down. But then off season, we just have fun, have a good time.
We take your suggestions, so if there's things you want us to talk about, things you want us to try, that's what we do.
I imagine there'll be some sort of season 4 quiz for me.
The quiz was very fun, if a little demoralising last time.
It was a good time. But we're also going to have 2 extra episodes per month.
Yes.
Including November, when this is coming out.
Yes, so every 2 weeks there will be an extra episode. And there's already a little collection of extra episodes over there. If you're interested, if you join the Patreon, you get access to our entire back catalogue. So you won't just get what we release from now, you get access to everything.
Everything. It's all there.
So check it out. It's patreon.com/generallyspooky.
Yes.
Patreon.com/generallyspooky.
And there's a link in the description below.
Yeah, there always is. And for most of the ways you can support us, if you're so inclined, usually in the description.
Yes. Well, I'm dying to get stuck in. I think we should roll some music and find out what we're all here for today.
For the last time.
For the last time this
until next year.
Well, what are we talking about today? What's the finale?
Well, I saved a spookier story for a finale, and I raised my concerns with you yesterday that unwittingly I always ruin any ghost stories for myself because I have to check things. If there are details in the story, I have to check if they're true.
It's just worth checking.
So I started panicking that this episode wasn't actually spooky enough. But I think it's because I've dissected it to death. So, yeah, I think it's a spookier story. This was supposed to be just before Halloween.
Yep.
It's not.
It's just after Halloween.
But I think it'll still be good. I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
And you have your own story to add to the milieu of this tale.
I do
which
indeed.
We'll get to towards the end. Mm-hmm. which I have not asked you to prep for, which may have been kind of cruel.
I thought it was going to come up, so that's fine.
So you're mentally prepared?
Yes.
If not, physically prepared?
I haven't written anything down.
There are no notes in that notepad.
No, I just have an empty notebook in front of me.
This week, we're talking about the truly infamous Mary King's Close.
Oh, shit.
Probably one of the most well-known spooky spots in Scotland.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's in Edinburgh, for those of you who don't know.
Bang in the middle of Edinburgh, right in the centre of Edinburgh, which I think is probably part of the reason it's so infamous, because it's easy to get to, it's in a major city, and it has a pretty grisly reputation.
Yeah. Do you think it's the epicentre of Edinburgh's ghost?
I don't know.
Interesting.
We're going to talk about an interesting theory for multiple ghost sightings on the Close.
Okay.
Which I think you'll be interested in. I think you'll like it. But I don't know. I feel like... I think a lot of the legends have been attributed to the Close that maybe didn't happen there.
Oh, interesting.
Because you can visit it. And it's a good representation of Edinburgh's history. So you can talk about the history of the city using that as a focal point.
It is worth a visit.
It's brilliant. I love it. And I was seriously spooked when we visited.
Yes, you were.
I was incredibly uneasy. I didn't like it. But I don't know.
We visited in the pre-podcast days. Mm-hmm. 5 years ago, maybe?
It was longer than... We were at uni.
Oh, so we were.
It was 10 years ago.
Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure we were in second year uni. So exactly 10 years ago.
Crazy. Well, I beg your pardon. 10 years ago we visited it.
Yeah.
And I visited it longer ago than that.
Mm-hmm. Which we'll talk about later. You can save that story. So you're going to have to listen to the end.
Oh, Eilidh with her clickbait again.
Hell yeah. I work online, baby. Gotta get that hook. Nowadays, you can go and visit Mary King's Close like we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know, Mary King's Close is actually like a labyrinth of lots of narrow streets and houses that are now underground underneath the city of Edinburgh.
Yes.
They're under the city chambers, right in the middle. But back in the 14 and 1500s, these streets were above ground, fully functional, just part of the city. And then they were built on top of.
Yep, after Vesuvius flattened them.
No, that's not true.
Not this one?
No.
Pompeii? No.
That's in Italy.
Ah, yes. Always mixing those up.
What was initially confusing when I was doing my research for this, though, and something that's important to remember, is that the name of the attraction that has been built is called the real Mary King's Close.
Yes.
But once you get down there, the streets that are still there are lots of different closes and wines. So it's not one street, it's lots of different ones.
Oh, interesting.
That are under there, but only part of it is open to the public.
Oh.
So some of the things that we're going to be talking about today happened in some of these different streets that go off Mary King's Close.
Ah, I see.
But they're part of this underground feature you can go and see.
Got you.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense.
So why is it underground? That's probably what you're wondering if you have no idea what Mary King's Close is.
And it's not because a volcano erupted.
No. In this case, no. From the 1400s onwards, and I tried very hard not to get into the origin and birth of the city of Edinburgh, because we don't have time.
We don't have time, here.
I looked into it. We're not talking about it, Kieran.
Eilidh,
We're not talking about it.
I want to know.
Don't ask me.
Fine, I'll write it down for the blether.
But we don't have time. From the 1400s onwards, Edinburgh was a city that was just on the up and up. It was getting bigger and bigger, and more people were living there. And more of the institutions that ran Scotland as a whole were moving to Edinburgh and having their bases in Edinburgh. Parliament moved there, although it wasn't the Parliament that we recognise in Edinburgh today. Mm-hmm. The big legal bodies moved there, so you have the major courts, the big lawyers, they were all moving to Edinburgh. And the king was present in Edinburgh more and more often from this time. So we've talked about Stirling Castle before.
Yep.
And that was a favoured home of the monarch. But the Jameses were spending a lot of time in Edinburgh.
Interesting.
So as this was happening, as more of the head honchos are moving to the city, it becomes a magnet for other people who want to take advantage of the opportunities there. Because if the wealthy are moving into the city, so is the money.
Yep.
So you have members of the royal court who are trying to follow the king. They start spending time in Edinburgh because it's the place to be. This in turn attracts professionals, scholars, merchants, and many other people. In 1560, the Flodden Wall was built around Edinburgh. I think we mentioned the Flodden Wall in our Greyfriars Kirkyard episode, because if you visit the cemetery, parts of the wall, the original wall, are still visible.
Yes.
You can still see them. This wall was built in 1560, and we've mentioned the Battle of Flodden before.
Uh-huh.
We will again in just a little bit. It was a significant loss for the Scots. King James IV was killed at the Battle of Flodden.
I couldn't remember which king, but I remembered someone important died at the Battle of Flodden.
James IV, and this was in 1513. Lots of people who were in charge of Scotland were worried that following this loss, the English were going to take advantage of the timing and attack Edinburgh.
Oh.
So they decided to build this big wall to try and keep the English out.
It's a solid tactic.
Now, I read that the English never invaded after the Battle of Flodden. I don't think they invaded until 1544 as part of the Rough Wooing.
Oh, yep.
But it had nothing to do with Flodden. Which was just as well, because it took them 47 years to finish the wall.
Well, I was just thinking, like, it's a good plan, build a big wall to keep someone out, but it's not a quick plan.
No, especially not on the scale that they were building.
No, you can't quickly build a giant stone wall.
To totally encircle a city.
Yes. It's not easy. It's not like an Age of Empires. You can't just click and drag.
No. They didn't have that kind of technology back then. But although you have all the benefits of having the city defended with this wall, it started causing a lot of problems because it restricted where you could build and still be part of the city.
Oh, yeah.
So it's created a perimeter. If you want to enjoy the defence that it brings you, you want to be on the inside of this wall.
Yeah.
But if everything has been built on, you're kind of stuffed.
What do you do?
So instead of building out, people started building up. Houses and buildings in Edinburgh became really tall as people were building homes and buildings that had multiple stories. So you could have different families potentially living on different floors, or if you were extremely wealthy, you might own the whole building to yourself, including like the cellar beneath. That was if you had lots and lots of money.
Yeah, that'd be pretty top. I imagine that was haphazard at best.
Kind of. Records vary, but I think these houses could be somewhere between 7 and 14 stories tall.
14 stories?
I saw that in one place, so I don't know whether or not I believe it, but I saw 7 in several places.
Even 7 stories is high.
I beg your pardon.
No phones during the presentation,
It's on my desk
please.
charging. I can't even look at it.
We'll see.
So these were tall.
Yeah, that's a lot taller than I would expect.
Mm-hmm. And on top of that, Edinburgh is very hilly.
Ah, yes.
So you end up with different buildings built on different parts of a hill with different floors. So if you have a house that's built on the bottom of a hill that has 7 stories,
Yes.
the 7th story might be level with the first story of a house built on top of the hill.
That's a weird one, isn't it?
So on Mary King's Close, for example, I read on their website, I think it was on their website, that Mary King's Close, everything they've preserved, is over 8 different levels.
Oh, okay.
So some of the closes are down low and then other ones are closer to the street, outside street level.
Closer. Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be tough.
That's interesting. Having been there, I wouldn't have thought you traversed 8 floors. That seems
Some of it's very steep.
Yeah. That's mental.
Mm-hmm. So it's important to know that things were on different levels with each other, but not all of it was underground. It was just on this hill.
Yes, I'm with you. But it is all underground now.
Yes,
Yeah.
because the rest of it was just demolished.
Yes.
So like I said, Mary King's Close is very steep. You have the top of it up at what is now ground level that comes out towards the city chambers, but it slopes downwards very sharply towards what was the Nor Loch, which was a man-made loch built where Princess Street Gardens is now.
Oh.
And Waverley Station.
Oh, that's cool.
So all of that used to be just water.
Yeah.
And it was built as a kind of defence for the city.
That answers my next question of why would you build a big man-made loch in the middle of a city? Because the army won't have portable boats.
I think there was a suggestion at one point, because it froze over, that it would be a good invasion tactic. But I don't know if that was ever done.
Interesting. I can see why they got rid of it.
Yeah, well, that will become even more
Okay.
clear as we continue. So Mary King's Close is leading down to this big loch, which is no longer there.
Yep.
If you had money, then you would get a higher floor of one of these houses that was built at that time. An early version of a penthouse.
I was just thinking.
Like I said, if you had lots of money, you would have the whole house to yourself. But if you didn't have much money to speak of, then you had one of the low houses. And these were pretty bad for one fairly significant reason. And that was the smell.
Oh. I thought you were going to say flooding.
No. It was because of the smell.
Oh, no.
Because of the, well, shit.
Yeah.
Basically.
The lack of sewage system.
Yes. At this point, there is no such thing as indoor plumbing in Edinburgh. Rather than the lovely bathroom I'm sure you have in your home if you're listening to this, people in Edinburgh had buckets at this time. But worse than that, they had shared buckets because you would have one per family.
Oh.
And buckets get full.
And buckets need emptied.
Yes. Mary King's Close was just one of the streets that was subject to the Gardaí Loo rule, which is probably something you've heard of before. At 7 a.m. and 10 p.m, residents of the closes and the tall houses were allowed to empty their buckets out into the street.
I mean, it's fairly organised having twice a day when you're allowed to do it. First thing and very last thing. But that is fucking grim.
Yeah. The rule was you had to shout Gardaí low before you threw your bucket out of the window. And it means mind the water in French. But when you say it with a Scottish accent, it sounds more like Gardaí loo.
It's just... Well, I mean, I'm sitting here judging with my indoor plumbing, which I didn't fit. I don't know how it works. What else could they do?
I mean, you can't keep it in the house.
No, and you can't have shit that don't stink.
Yeah. So if you were living on the bottom floors of Mary King's Close, that's why it smells so bad.
Oh, because at 7 and 10, just a stream of shit comes past your door.
Literally. And all of this is running down into the loch, by the way. Because remember, this runs down to the loch.
Yeah, that's what I assumed.
Yes, it's pretty steep. And Mary King's Close, I think, was the closest to this loch, which will be significant later. On top of all this shit, oil lamps were used throughout the close during this time. And they were lit using fish oil.
Ah, yes.
So that made it smell even worse. Fish oil was cheap. You could get lots of it. It didn't cost much. I think they started being used in the mid-1500s because a law was passed by Edinburgh Council ordering people who were living in closes like Mary King's Close to have lamps lit outside their home or outside their business at night.
Fair enough, yep.
They had to do this by law. Why was this a rule?
To prevent theft.
Yeah, pretty much. Theft, murder, assault.
Yeah. Crime.
Yeah. The closes were really dangerous.
Yeah.
Really, really dangerous. I looked at a lot of stuff. It was a bad time to be there in the dark.
Well, if there's that much poverty and wealth disparity, but then they're quite narrow, having been to Mary King's Close.
In some places, they're like the width of a doorway, I think, or maybe a bit wider. They're really not very wide at all, and they feel very enclosed, even if they are wider than that, because the buildings are so high.
Well, that's just what I'd say, with it so high as well, they're not going to get much light.
No.
So, that's just a breeding ground for nefarious activities, isn't it?
On top of that, a lot of the... if you look at maps, some of the closes are running perfectly straight, but because there's so many of them, it becomes very easy to disappear.
Yeah.
Because the centre of Edinburgh, and the whole of Edinburgh really, was just a tangle of all these tiny little closes and wynds and alleys that ran off each other.
Yeah, it'd just be madness, wouldn't it?
So you could get away.
Yeah, you could just disappear into the night.
Mm-hmm. So everyone had to keep lights on to deter criminals from the winter of 1554, I believe. That's when they made it a rule that you had to. And the law said it was for eschewing of evil doings of various vagabonds and others.
These damn vagabonds.
And I quite like that turn of phrase.
Yeah.
So I hope I've managed to give you an idea of what Mary King's Close and other closes were like at this time. It was grim.
Shitty.
Yeah. Unless you were in one of the nicer homes, but even then, still shitty.
Yeah, I mean, if you're rich enough, you could pay someone to fling your bucket of shit out the window for you.
You still have to poop.
Yeah, you still got this bucket of shit in your house.
Mm-hmm. You're rich, still have to poop.
Yep.
The houses on Mary King's Close that you can go in and visit are pretty small, a lot of them. They had quite low ceilings, especially on the lower floors.
Okay.
They were quite cramped, quite dark, because all the houses are close together. And usually, if you didn't have a lot of money, you would be sharing a room with your whole family.
Yeah, as was standard.
So you had no privacy and no space to speak of.
No.
You just kind of had to make do.
Can't say I fancy it.
No, I quite like just you and me having our own space.
Yeah, that wouldn't be for me at all. That wouldn't be worth chasing the riches and the nobility and everything for. Like moving to Edinburgh.
But I mean, for some people, that was their only option.
Yeah.
Because, famine, if you were a farmer and you were subjected to a couple of years of famine, that could wipe you out.
That's true.
And if you knew there was money and jobs in the city, you're going to go.
You're going to go. And if you're already there, you're not going to leave very easily.
Exactly. The first record that I found for what is now Mary King's Close is from 1530.
Cool.
And back then it was called John Towris Close. He owned a few properties on the street, so it was named after him. And this was fairly common. If you look at close names through Edinburgh, they might be named after someone significant who lived there, or they're named after the jobs of people who lived in that area.
Oh, yeah.
So you have Flesh Market Close, that's a famous one.
Yep.
Things like that. So I'm just going to tell you about a couple of the significant events that happened in and around Mary King's Close.
Please do.
That are a bit grim and a bit spooky.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're here for.
My words exactly. That's what we're here for.
It's 1535, and we're on Craig's Close, which is one of the neighbouring closes to Mary King's Close.
Okay.
There's been a shocking murder.
Oh, no.
So, given how I've built up the environment, what do you think has happened?
Well, for it to have been a shocking murder, it must have been pretty bad. Because I imagine regular murder occurred fairly regularly.
Regular murder would happen regularly.
So, I think a rich person has been murdered.
Precisely. That is the only reason people care.
Yep.
Yes. This murder happened in one of the big wealthy homes on Craig's Close. Alexander Cant was a wealthy burgess. Burgess? I'm going to say Burgess.
Burgess.
Which I think means an MP.
Oh, okay.
But an early version of an MP. He had voting rights on Edinburgh Council. Alexander Cant was murdered. And he was murdered in his own home. By his wife and mother-in-law.
Oh, that was a turn. You just shocked me, as promised.
So what happened? How did we get here? Well, Alison Rough was born around 1485. Not much is known about her until she married her husband, which was fairly typical.
Yep.
And this happened around 1500. The date isn't certain. Alison married a man called Jasper Main, who was very wealthy, very successful, and it seems like her own parents might have had money.
Okay.
Which is how she was able to marry someone who had money. Because that's generally how that works.
Yes. She'd have had a healthy dowry.
Yes. And a decent reputation,
Yep.
I would imagine. Jasper was wealthy because he was a merchant and he was a lawyer.
That's a good way to make some money in the 1400s.
Yeah, they got married in 1500. Alison and Jasper had 4 children together, 2 sons and 2 daughters, and setting up her children for success in life and making sure that they had everything they would ever need kind of became her obsession. That was her dream, her goal.
Her raison d'etre.
Yeah, exactly. Alison helped Jasper a great deal with running his business.
Okay.
Which wasn't too unusual for the time. It was fairly typical that women would help. But what is unusual about Alison is that she pops up in just about every document you could find from the 1500s. So every type of document that existed, there would be one that mentioned Alison.
Oh, interesting.
Which is kind of unheard of for a woman.
She could sign things on her own?
Well, no, she couldn't.
Okay.
If Jasper had things to sort in court, because he was a lawyer, he was a property owner, she often helped him do that. So she would be recorded on the court document.
Ah, I see.
And they owned several properties together, and she helped him manage them. And over time, as they were married longer, ownership of some of their properties ended up either being split between them or some of them were moved to her completely.
Got you.
She owned them in her own right, and rents would be paid to her, not to him.
Very nice, very nice.
King James V even gifted them some property in Edinburgh at one point.
Oh, fuck.
And it's not clear exactly why, but it seems likely that Jasper rendered some kind of legal services to the king or to someone in the court, and it was his way of thanking him.
Very nice.
For that. And Alison managed to pull her weight and help with the business that she and her husband were running without being able to read or write.
Well, that is impressive.
So I said that she couldn't sign her name on documents.
No.
She literally couldn't. I think her signature is on one document at one point, but the notary had to hold, or she had to hold the notary's, no.
She held a pen and someone held her hand?
Yes.
Yeah.
The notary had to write her name, but she had to write her name.
Is that fair and square? Or what else could you do?
I mean, she signed it.
She can't write her name, but she wrote her name. So.
But she was smart. Like, she knew the ins and outs of what Jasper was doing legally. She was able to look after their property and manage collecting rent and payment. She helped Jasper argue cases in court sometimes.
Damn.
So she knew how it worked. She knew how to argue. She was very confident too. She wasn't scared to argue for herself.
Yeah.
And get things done properly.
Fair play.
Yeah. In 1510, they passed some of their land on to their eldest son, John. And in 1513, they handed down some of their property to their second son, who was called Adam. But do you remember what else happened in 1513?
Oh, no. No, I've already forgotten.
You sounded so proud. No.
No. Oh, there was a murder.
No.
Oh, then no.
No. In 1513, the Battle of Flodden happened.
Oh, yes.
Like we just said.
We just said, like 20 minutes ago.
Jasper had come under the king's notice, like I said, and as a wealthy fighting age man, Jasper fought at the Battle of Flodden. And like so many of the other men, he died there.
Oh.
And it was pretty devastating on the city, and I think the country as a whole. It was a fairly significant loss.
Yeah.
The battle widowed a huge number of women and left lots of children without fathers. And this is the 1500s, remember, so this could be devastating for a family if you lose the breadwinner. There's very limited ways for women to make money.
Yep.
It's difficult to be a widow in the 1500s. So it was pretty devastating. I read a paper by Elizabeth Ewan, which was so interesting. I'll have it linked somewhere. I'll give it to you. Because it was very easy to read, even though it was an academic paper. And she wrote about the aftermath of Flodden. And she said, as the whispers became louder, the town council, in an attempt to prevent panic, ordered women to stop clamouring and crying in the street and go into their homes or the church to pray for the king and his army. So this was at the point when rumours were starting to reach Edinburgh that the king had lost the battle.
Yep.
And people were panicking because they didn't know if their family, their loved ones were going to come home.
Yeah. Well, it would be doubly devastating to lose the person you love if you were so lucky to marry someone you loved, and then to just know destitution awaits if you have lost them.
And then the threat of war because the king's dead.
Yeah, an invasion and all that good stuff.
So it was pretty bad. I also read that there were battles in the streets of Edinburgh following Flodden.
Jeez, oh.
I don't know if that's true. I haven't looked into it. I did that on purpose because we can't get into it.
We've got a lot to get through.
The Battle of Flodden is its own episode. But this is what Alison was left in because Jasper had died in the battle.
Yeah. What else could you do?
She was left without a husband and she had 4 children to raise. Alison and Jasper had passed land to their second son, like I said.
Adam.
Yes. Days before the battle.
Oh, man.
Which is pretty eerie.
Yeah.
Because this basically secured his future. He had property. He had a way of making money.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they were concerned about what might happen. I don't know how many people knew the battle was going to happen or not, or how long Jasper was actually away for.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they knew combat was coming and they were concerned it wouldn't go well.
You have to assume so. Otherwise, it was weirdly very lucky.
Yeah.
They would have had to prepare for the battle. 4 days out, you're going to know.
A few days.
A few days out, you're going to know what's coming. Especially if you've been asked to fight. So, spooky.
Right? At the time, widows were only entitled to 1/3 of their husband's property when they died.
What?
So they didn't get everything handed to them. And naturally, you'd have some things that would pass down to their children that they would inherit. But legally, a husband was only allowed to leave his wife 1/3 of his possessions.
Why?
And even that wasn't necessarily just given to them. Widows would have to pursue their property in court to get it. Otherwise, it would be taken either under crown or by the council.
That's insane.
And luckily, Alison was well equipped to do this because she was familiar with the courts.
Yes.
She knew how it worked. She knew how to argue. So she was able to advocate for herself.
Very nice.
And this is also why Jasper had placed property in Alison's name. This was a very common thing for wealthy men to do because Alison didn't have to fight that. That belonged to her.
Okay, yeah.
So when he was alive, it came under the household income. But if he died, that was hers.
It was already hers.
And that was a way for her husband to leave more than the 1/3 to his wife.
Very smart. Well, he seems like a good guy.
Yeah, it was a fairly common thing that happened. But yeah, he made sure that they were looked after. I think rather than land, I think their daughters were left dowries and things. Maybe other properties, I'm not terribly sure. But he made sure his family were provided for. And Alison didn't have to fight tooth and nail for everything that she had.
Yeah. She just had to fight tooth and nail for everything else.
Yeah, she just had to fight tooth and nail for what was left to her legally.
Yep.
Under the law of the land.
Yeah, this is legally yours, but we can't just give it to you, obviously.
So stupid.
So stupid.
So, Alison's husband's dead. She's now in charge of various properties that they owned across what is now Edinburgh's Old Town. They owned several places, and they had land aside from that. Which sounds cushy.
Sounds alright.
She also has to take on Jasper's debt.
Ooh.
Because there's payments outstanding that he didn't pay before he died. She's now responsible for them. But she's also responsible for all the money that Jasper was owed.
Well, that's something. Hopefully it all balances out in the positive.
Oh yeah, she has to settle both.
Yep.
So she has to pay debt, make sure everything is met at that end. But she also has to chase down people who owed her husband money.
Yeah.
And in some cases, that involved chasing down the widows of the people who owned her dead husband money.
Yep, I was just thinking there's a good chance they also died.
Yep.
Every which way. Interesting.
So she was pretty canny, and it seemed like she kept track of every bean.
Tricky if you can't write.
Yes. Don't know how that one worked.
Don't know. You should get it on numbers, I suppose.
Yeah, because I guess being literate means something different to being able to write numbers.
Yeah. It's tricky, though. It's very impressive.
On top of all of that, legal stuff. Between 1497, so just before Alison and Jasper were married, and 1530, not long before the murder takes place, because remember, that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
There were 6 outbreaks of plague in Edinburgh.
All that's happened, and it's a bit plaguey.
So, we're going to talk more about plague later, but just consider how difficult this made day-to-day living for Alison in Edinburgh.
It's not good. Crime everywhere, debtors having to be a debtor, plague, grieving. That's just a lot.
Raising children.
You've got 4 kids.
You've got to secure your children's lives. A lot going on.
She's busy. She be busy. Does she be murdering?
Well, we're getting close.
Okay.
Remember too, Jasper had been a merchant as
Yes.
well as a lawyer and everything else. So Alison became a merchant when he died because she couldn't become a lawyer. But she did have money she could invest to start trading.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Unfortunately, the plague greatly disrupted trade. It made it very difficult to buy and sell,
Yep.
which had an impact on how she could provide for her family. But from what I understand, she had a merchant's booth somewhere around High Street, which is where lots of other merchants gathered and traded, as you would expect. And it wasn't just the basics that you would find there either. You had people who were trading in fine jewellery, precious metals, furniture, clothing, luxury imports, loads of stuff. It was really a hub for commerce.
Very nice.
So she had her spot there. I think she was dealing in cloth and clothing.
You get to be a merchant.
I have it in my notes. She was based on Anchor's Close, which was on the north side of High Street.
Very cool. If you just sell things on eBay, do you think you get to call yourself a merchant? You know, if you go to car boot sales and buy things, sell them on eBay.
I think you should.
I think you should.
Really?
We should bring back that as terminology. What would you do? Oh, I'm a merchant.
In 1517, so 4 years after Jasper's death, Alison was granted a divorce from a man called Thomas Lauriston.
Oh, okay. Not from her widow.
No. This is a different man who I could find out nothing about. There's nothing. And in several places, it even explains that the only reason we know Alison remarried is because of this divorce document.
Huh.
There's no other records.
Oh,
which is strange, because Alison is in records all over the place.
Yeah.
And a marriage record is fairly significant, but this doesn't exist.
That's strange. I wonder what his deal was.
So there's no record of her second marriage apart from its end. Also in 1517, Alison brought another woman who was also made a widow at Flodden to court on defamation charges.
Oh.
And it seems likely that this is related to her divorce from Thomas, since it was the same year.
Oh, yeah.
And Elizabeth Ewan, who I mentioned earlier, she thinks that this woman was suggesting that Alison was unfaithful.
Ooh.
Or she was one of them loose women.
Oh, heavens.
Because this was one of the worst ways you could degrade a woman's reputation.
Yep.
In the 1500s.
Cheeky.
So she brought her to court over it.
And she has the know-how. I imagine she's going to win.
But she's pretty feisty. She's pretty tough.
She's fucking out there doing it. She's out there fucking, you know.
No, she's
No,
not.
she's not doing that.
In 1528, Alison's eldest son, John, who I mentioned, married a wealthy widow. So became even more wealthy.
Very nice.
And that same year, her second son, Adam, decided to become a priest.
Oh.
So the properties and the lands that were passed to him were given back to Alison in exchange for a life pension.
Oh.
Because he decided to join the church.
Yeah. Interesting. I wondered if they were going to go to the church and if she'd be like, no!
No, it was fine. Just they exchanged what he would get from her as inheritance.
Yeah, a lifetime pension. That's pretty good.
So she would provide for him. One of Alison's daughters, Isabel, had gotten married by 1528, but we don't know much else. We don't know when. And Alison's other daughter, Catherine, was in business as a brewster by 1531.
What's a brewster?
Brewing beer, I think.
Oh.
And this was a more common job for married women, so it was unusual that Catherine was doing it before she was married.
Interesting.
But she was making her own money. She had her own business.
Fair play. It's a very industrious family.
Yeah, big time. They had money so they could make money.
Yeah, they were getting shit done.
But also in 1531, Alison managed to arrange an extremely lucrative marriage match for Catherine. It was like the jewel in Alison's crown. She managed to arrange for her daughter to marry Alexander Kant, a rich MP who had been widowed twice.
Uh-oh. Was he the Burgess, or was Elizabeth's widowed husband the Burgess? I've muddled myself.
Who's Elizabeth?
There's a good question. The woman who's the merchant.
Alison.
Alison.
That's why you're confused.
Don't do the names very well, if you've not noticed beforehand.
Yeah, Alexander Count was a Burgess. He was the rich MP.
Yes. I muddled them.
And there was a considerable age gap between he and Catherine, as you might expect, because he'd already had 2 wives. He'd already amassed a fortune and built a career and everything else. He actually married his first wife before Catherine was even born.
Oh, that's icky. Oh.
Icky then, icky now.
Icky. Icky every which way.
But it's likely that Alison would have been thrilled by this match.
Well, that's good. Mm-hmm. Well,
because money.
He's got a lot of money and he's probably going to die soon, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, well,
we know he is, but...
you know. Alison promised Alexander a pretty hefty dowry in exchange for marrying Catherine. 400 merks. And no, I don't know what that means.
A lot, seemingly.
And it seems like this was particularly attractive to Alexander because he had a pretty sizable property portfolio, but he didn't have a lot of cash. So,
asset rich, but cash poor.
Yes. So this solved that problem.
Very nice.
In 1531, Catherine and Alexander were living in his townhouse on a close that was named after him. Cant's Close.
Oh, well, that's a lot of wealth and status just summed up right there, isn't it?
I think it's now part of or underneath the Radisson Hotel, or one of the Radisson hotels in Edinburgh, which is kind of funny.
That is kind of funny. I don't know why.
But Alison was also living with them.
Oh. Was she asked to, or was she just like, actually, your house is nicer than mine? I'm just going to stay here too.
Well, the thought is that this might have been part of the marriage arrangement.
Oh, yeah.
Precisely for the reason you said, that it would have been a very nice house. And it would have been more space than they had. Because I think Alison was living... I think she was living on Craig's Close.
Yep, that would make sense.
Because it was close to where she had her merchant's booth. It's where a lot of merchants were living. We have to remember that Mary King's Close was, I think it was the second biggest street in Edinburgh.
Oh, yeah?
In its time, yeah.
Damn.
So it was a major hub, so you would be there because all the business was there. But he had a nicer house.
Yeah.
So you're going to live with him.
You're going to do that. And you get to save money on shit buckets. So, that's good.
Maybe if you're wealthy, you get your own shit bucket.
Ooh, 1 per person. That's living the good life.
Maybe that's the 1500s equivalent of having like a Tesla.
Or just having multiple bathrooms. It's just multiple shit buckets.
Maybe.
Don't kick the bucket, though. Whatever you do.
Tell that to Alexander.
Oh.
One of the properties that Alison owned, and I think Alison and Catherine had lived there for a time, was on Peebles Wynd. And Alison had agreed that this would be part of Catherine's dowry.
Oh, yeah?
So Alexander would now own it. But this was made very difficult because despite promising Alexander that he could have the house on Peebles Wynd,
Yep.
Alison sold it to someone else.
Ooh.
After she'd promised it to him before he could take it.
Well, you can't be doing that now.
So she wasn't going to honour this agreement that she had made.
She's just having her cake and eating it too.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Remember, I said she's quite a bean counter.
Yeah. I mean, why sell something once when you can sell it twice,
By 1532, the year after Catherine and Alexander got married, Alison still hadn't paid Catherine's dowry.
Uh-oh.
And he was waiting. It seems like they needed this money. She wasn't paying up. So Alexander sued Alison for this money.
Can't blame him. Really?
Can't blame him, but it must have truly soured their relationship at that point.
Well, especially if she's living in the same house.
Yeah.
Even if it is many floors.
And he's pursuing her legally.
Yeah. Especially if she's better at it than him.
Possibly. Then, in 1533 and 1534... Alison's eldest son, John, accused his mother of having had an affair. And he claimed in front of witnesses that his sister Isabel, the other sister, had been illegitimate.
Ooh.
He claimed that Jasper hadn't been her father, so she didn't deserve any of her inheritance.
Oh no. Oh, it's all going to pot now. They were so industrious and well put together before.
So it seems like John just wanted more for himself.
That's what that is.
Because
100%.
his brother's on like lifetime pension.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any property.
There's just more land to be had.
Yeah.
So he's just like, can I have it? I feel like I don't have enough. Do you have enough to get by? Yes, but they have more. Oh, it's all going to pot now.
So it seems like that might be one of the reasons there's not much information about Isabel, because this claim was made.
Yeah.
So she was just kind of erased. It was never... John didn't win anything in this claim, because Alison fought it pretty voraciously. But, you know, she took this really badly, because her son was claiming she'd been unfaithful.
Well, yeah, it's from your own son.
And there's nothing to suggest who was right.
No.
Really. Other than John not getting anything.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to believe her. Because he has a lot to gain by making this claim.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If it was my personal choice, I would say she's telling the truth.
And he's a wee shit.
Yeah. But I'm saying there's nothing definitive either way.
A wee shit bucket.
Yeah. I think I read at one point that he was brought to the church court for like defaming or like saying really awful things about a priest. I'm sure I read that about him.
He's just running his mouth all over the place.
Yeah, which doesn't look good for him. Later in 1534, John went on and claimed that Alison hadn't handed over to him everything he was due in his inheritance.
Oh, he's a wee shitbag.
But this one's tricky because Alison was doing this to Alexander as well with the dowry. There's a...
No.
Is it part of a pattern of behaviour?
Yeah.
Or is it his pattern of being a wee shit?
Ooh, I don't know.
See, that's tricky.
That is tricky.
Because it seems like she may have just held on to it.
Yep. That's more of a grey area.
Because she sold a property she was supposed to give to her son-in-law.
And if I'm fast forwarding slightly, I imagine she's about to murder someone rather than give them money. So
don't know why you think that. The next year, in 1535, as part of the dowry dispute, which was still ongoing at this point, this is 4 years after they got married, Alison was brought to court by the man she had sold people's wine to.
Oh, yeah.
This is the house that's part of the dowry. He was claiming that he had bought the house fair and square from Alison, and now she was trying to just take it from him and give it to someone else. Which you can't do because she sold it.
Yeah.
So she was deciding just to keep this man's money, but take the house back so she could give it to Alexander, like she was supposed to do in the first place.
Can you imagine how stressful that would be? You know, you've bought a house, you're stoked, it's really nice, you move in, and then the previous owner comes in and just like, get out of my house. Like, no, this is my house, I bought it off of you. No, I promised it to this man, get out of my house. Because...
even like wielding the document, but see, like, look at this marriage contract. This is his house.
Yeah. It's not good. Maybe she was hoping they'd murder each other and she'd get both houses.
You guys just deal with this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go and be a businesswoman and a badass bitch.
I'm just being a boss bitch. You guys just take these pistols and just see what happens.
I'm being a girl boss. I'm going to continue girl bossing and gatekeeping over here. You guys can just sort this out.
You guys just sort out over there.
So this new house owner, he's the one bringing her to court.
Yes.
Over this, not Alexander. This is additional. The man who bought people's wine actually won his case on the 31st of August, 1535. The court decided that Alison couldn't just take this from him because it suited her.
Well, that's good.
He owned the house.
Yeah.
Which left her in a tricky position because she was going to have to compensate Alexander for having sold this house.
Yes. The money of the sale should go to him, shouldn't it?
Well, yeah, because it was his.
Yep.
And she sold it. So legally, that's his money.
Yeah, you can't just be doing that.
And it's confusing because she made the contract. So she knew that she decided the terms.
Did she just hope no one would notice?
I don't know. I don't know what the plan was. I really don't.
No.
I don't know if she just hoped he would go with it.
Yeah, she hoped someone would roll over.
You have to assume things were going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
You have to. So Alison's in a bit of a pickle. Because she doesn't have this money.
It's tricky.
So this is where things get a little confusing. Because on the night of the 31st of August, 1535, Alison, Catherine and Alexander are in the property that's on Craig's Close.
Oh, okay.
Which is what makes me wonder if this was his townhouse rather than belonging to Alison.
Oh, okay.
Because they were all there that night.
Uh-huh.
So if this is where they've been living, that would suggest it's his home.
Yes.
And I apologise. It's usually I'm better at this, that I know what's what, but this is very confusing. But they were in a big townhouse on Craig's Close that night after Alison has just lost in court over this property.
Yep.
With me?
With you.
Things can't have been too good between the three of them on this particular evening.
You have to assume not, generally.
Because tensions had probably been running high for quite a while. Resentment would have been building. They were probably quite vicious to each other because they're all taking each other to court, you know. Elizabeth Ewan said in her paper that I read that Catherine seems to have been a rather passive presence in the story so far. A pretty pawn between two canny traders.
That's well put.
Which sounds a lot like a lot of the marriages we've talked about.
Yes, very much so.
That she's just there.
Yeah, it was never about her. It was trading power, money and influence.
Around her.
Yeah.
But on the 31st of August, it seems like whatever arguments had been happening between the three of them escalated further than they ever had before. Because at least one of the women beat Alexander to death using a pair of fire tongs.
Ooh, that's a vicious way to go, isn't it? Jesus.
According to some of the reports I read, that he had multiple blows to his head.
Oh, no.
With these metal tongs.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we don't know exactly what happened that night, but one theory is Alexander got fed up of waiting for his debt. It's been confirmed that this property is not going to be passed down to him.
Yep.
He and Alison get in a particularly vicious argument with each other that just keeps getting worse and worse. Things got physical between the two of them, that maybe he attacked her. And then Catherine stepped in to defend her mother against her husband. And she's the one that killed him.
Oh, there's a theory.
But it seems both women were involved.
Yes.
But no one really knows exactly how it happened.
No one knows who wielded the tongs.
No. So this is bad.
Yes.
Really, really bad.
That much we can agree on.
Yes. Alison and Catherine have to now go on the run. Because the punishment for murder is murder.
Yep.
You would be executed if you were found guilty of murder.
Yes. They're going to get themselves hung up.
So what happened after this, do you think? What's your prediction?
Well, they're going to take as much money as they can and go into hiding. But they're going to hide within Edinburgh in one of the sort of like slum areas. Get a bottom floor somewhere. You know, like the vaults we talked about. That's what I think.
Okay, good guess. I don't know what they took with them, but both women did go on the run. And they did manage to evade capture, but only for a couple of days.
Oh.
At the very most. They were both imprisoned. They were captured. And it must have been obvious fairly quickly that they're the ones that killed Alexander.
Yeah.
Because there was never any doubt they were hunted for straight away.
Yep. So we know 3 people were here. Now one of them's murdered and 2 of them are missing.
And he's been in dispute
Yep.
with her for 4 years.
Yeah. I mean,
you know,
no matter how good at litigation you are, you're not coming out of that one, are you?
No. Mother and daughter were both tried in Edinburgh for murder and were both found guilty.
I imagine that was quite a short trial for the reasons we just discussed.
Yeah, it didn't take long. I think it was fairly typical that trials and hearings in court would take a day.
Oh, yeah.
I was looking at that for a witchy extra episode.
Ooh.
Both of the women were sentenced to death.
Yes.
But I have a question for you. What method was sentenced to them?
Well, I was just wondering if they were going to hang or if they were going to be guillotined.
Okay.
Because I don't think it doesn't seem that they're noble enough to get the guillotine.
The guillotine wasn't typical in Scotland. It would be a sword or an axe.
Oh, sorry, just beheaded generally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, beheading.
I don't think the guillotine was a Scottish thing.
So I'm going to say hung, but are you going to tell me they were like fed to wolves or something mental?
They weren't fed to wolves, but they weren't hung either. Both women were sentenced to death by drowning.
In the Norloch?
In the Norloch.
Okay.
That was one of the methods of execution in Edinburgh at the time.
Oh.
So yeah, remember I told you the Norloch would come back around, and we're going to talk about it again later. But you would think drowning to death would be bad enough, but it's particularly bad to drown to death in the Norloch.
Well, because it's got to be at least 50% shit.
Well, yeah, it's not fresh, clear, refreshing at all. It was barely a loch. It was really more like a bog or a marsh.
Yeah.
The water was thick, noxious. You used that word earlier. Spot on. Polluted. Really grim. Just disgusting. All of the waste from the city was washed into this loch.
Yep.
And executions happened here. So I'm fairly certain the remains were just left in the water.
That's what I assume also.
And the loch wasn't used for drinking water.
Well, that's something at least.
It wasn't ever used for that.
Yeah.
There were wells at its edges, I believe. But people didn't gather water from the loch.
Blah.
Yeah, so Alison was drowned in the Norloch on the 3rd of September 1535.
Well.
Which is 3 days after the murder.
Oh, wow.
Which is what makes me think that they didn't get away for very long.
No, that's a quick turnaround, isn't it? Yeesh.
And according to one of the things I read, it took 10 minutes, quote, before she completely sank below the filth and the bubbles closed over her head.
Ew. Just get thrown in, tied up, then you just bounce on the top because it's solid.
Yeah.
Oh, that's grim.
Yeah. It's not nice.
Might they be some ghosts now?
No. Interesting theory.
Yeah.
But what about Catherine?
Oh, yes, that wasn't they were they both sentenced to drowning?
They were both sentenced to drown, but Catherine didn't.
Did she get a stay of execution somehow?
Well, yeah, what I didn't tell you is that Catherine was pregnant when she murdered her husband.
Interesting.
She told the court she was pregnant. It was obvious she was pregnant, so she was given a stay of execution because they wouldn't murder a pregnant woman.
Yep. That would be wrong.
I know, that would be too far. She was placed under house arrest at her brother's house.
Oh, yeah?
I'm assuming John's, because Adam was a priest.
Yes, and he'd given up all his property.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it was her eldest brother, rather than being executed.
Yep.
And then Catherine gave birth to a daughter, who she named Elizabeth.
Oh, like I thought. That's strange.
And then Catherine abandoned her daughter.
Does she just bail?
Catherine bailed.
Yeah.
Before the authorities could catch up to her, Catherine escaped Edinburgh, leaving Elizabeth behind.
Oh, man. Well, if she stayed, she would have died.
Yeah.
So.
Those are the choices.
Yep.
Initially, she travelled south and she was hiding out in England. And she actually got remarried down there to a man called Aloysius Allen.
Aloysius?
Yeah.
Don't come across a lot of Aloysiuses.
No, that's the first.
Yep.
And I saw him described as a Lutheran theologian.
Oh.
So I'm taking that to mean smart cookie and religious.
Yes.
And then Catherine and her new husband left England altogether and started a new life together in Germany.
In Germany?
Yep.
Well, there you go.
They had other children together. And she just started again.
Just started afresh.
She never came back.
Well.
And she was never executed. She died in 1565.
Damn. What about Elizabeth? Does John take care of her?
Well, I don't know who was taking care of her. I'm assuming it was John because he had money.
Yeah.
We'll get to Elizabeth in a bit. In the years after Alison's execution, because she did die, there was a lot of bickering over what should happen with all of her property and money.
Oh, yes, yes.
Because she left behind a fair bit. And it couldn't it couldn't be inherited because she committed a crime.
Okay.
It was forfeited. So John didn't get it.
But he was ripping.
King James V, who was king at the time, felt that he should have it, obviously.
Naturally.
And he just took it with no legal process.
Yep.
And he gave it all as a gift to a man called David Wood.
Oh.
Naturally. But in true Alison fashion, it seems that he didn't have the authority to go giving people things that didn't actually belong to him. Edinburgh Council intervened and said, hold on, we deserve that. You can't take it.
Yeah.
And they argued back and forth for 6 years.
6 years.
Over Alison's estate.
Mental.
In the end, the king conceded that if a person was convicted of murder in Edinburgh, I think for a murder that took place in Edinburgh, then the council would be given all the forfeited property.
Yeah.
It would be theirs. But if a murderer escaped and became an outlaw, the king would get all the forfeited property. Alison had technically gone on the run and become an outlaw.
Oh, for like 2 days.
Yes, so the king got to keep all of her property.
Well, it's important to get these things defined, isn't it? I mean, fair play for just trying to argue with the king.
Well, yeah, they felt that because the crime had happened there, he was a citizen of Edinburgh. Alexander was, and Alison was. Her property belonged to them.
I mean, I don't think either of them really have a strong case. They're both there just going, I think I should take all of this. I think I should take all of this, actually. Yeah.
So this would actually be really sweet for me if I could just keep that. That would be great. But you were asking about Elizabeth.
Yes.
Catherine's abandoned daughter. I don't know who cared for her, but before Catherine died, she made sure, got all of her eggs in a basket, to make sure that all of her property in Scotland would be passed down to Elizabeth. So she never forgot her.
No.
But she never returned. And I don't know how much they were in contact.
No.
But Catherine made sure that everything that she owned in Scotland went to Elizabeth.
I'm surprised she was allowed to keep her property.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with that.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
I don't know if she made sure that Alexander's property went to her.
Yeah.
And she's the only one that could do it.
Curious. Well, that's nice, though, without getting bogged down in the details. It was nice she still thought of her, I guess.
But then, I don't know how you would feel if you were Elizabeth. Your mother and grandmother killed your dad.
Yeah.
And now you've inherited from the mother who abandoned you after making you effectively an orphan. Would it feel like blood money?
Don't know. Definitely need some counselling, which you're not going to get in the 1500s.
Nope.
Tricky.
So what do you think about that one?
Brutal.
That tale.
I thoroughly enjoyed the tale. It's very, very intense. Very bloody. And I was on, I forgot her name again, Alison's side for such a long time because she was sounded like a badass bitch getting things done. But then she'd murdered someone. And that's the line for me.
That's the line.
That's the line. She crossed it. What else we got?
Well, it was after Alison's time that the actual Mary King lived on Mary King's Close.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that as of today, there are only 2 closes in Edinburgh that are named after women.
Oh, yeah?
I am quite happy to be wrong on that, but I'm fairly certain. I'm fairly certain it's Mary King's Close, and the other one is Lady Stairs Close.
Oh. Well, there you go.
So it's a big deal
Yeah.
that the street became named after her.
It's very cool. I've always, because it's Mary King, thought of Mary Queen of Scots for some reason.
Nope, she did stay on the Close in 1567.
Oh, that's cool.
She stayed there on her last free night in Edinburgh before she and Bothwell rode out to Carberry Hill.
Ah.
But after that, she was captured, brought back to Edinburgh, I think stayed in a different part of the Close under house arrest.
Oh, interesting.
I think she stayed on Stuart's Close, which is one of the ones that goes off it.
Yeah.
So she did stay there.
Well, that's interesting. That's always who I thought of, which is just silly because it would be Mary Queen and not Mary King. If
Queen Mary's close.
Queen Mary's close, or
Nope.
anything else really. So who was Mary King?
Mary King was pretty cool. Her story is oddly similar to Alison's, just 100 years later.
Oh, yeah?
It's really quite eerie.
That's funny.
I didn't line these up on purpose. They're chronologically one after the other. Not much is known about Mary until she married a man called Thomas Nimmo in 1616.
Again, yep.
But she kept her maiden name.
Oh.
She didn't adopt her husband's name.
That's
So
nice.
she never became Mary Nimmo. She stayed Mary King after they got married, which was unusual for the time. Mary had 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters.
I think you've told this story already.
I know it's going to sound like I have, I swear. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. Because there's even a story in between these 2 women that I had to take out, and it's going to be an extra episode. It's just coincidence. Mary was also widowed fairly young, having had several children, and she was left to figure things out for herself. She had to provide for her family, using the inheritance left to her by her husband.
Interesting.
Thomas had died in 1629.
Not at the Battle of Flodden.
No, that was 1513.
Yeah. Which I've realised I always say like Culloden.
Flodden.
Because I say Philodden.
Oh, Flodden.
Yeah, Flodden. Philodden.
So yeah, Thomas died in 1629, and he had been a pretty influential guy. He had been a burgess, just like Alexander Kant had been. And in his will, he named Mary as his successor.
Oh, nice.
So Mary effectively became an MP.
Nice.
She was allowed to vote because she had a seat on Edinburgh Council.
She must have been one of the first.
This is wild.
Yeah.
Women didn't get the vote on an equal footing to men until 1928 in the UK.
Such a long time.
Yeah, this was 300 years before.
Oh, so outrageous.
This is a big deal.
Yes.
That she had a seat at the table and she could vote on decisions that impacted Edinburgh.
That's why she's the king.
Yeah. Literally. Mary pursued a career in trade, just like Alison had done. Assumedly because there's always money in it. She became a merchant and she made a good deal of money. She was very successful.
Oh, she didn't learn a trade.
In trading goods.
Yes.
She became a merchant.
Yep.
And because she pursued this career, she moved onto the street that would be named after her. Because that was a hub for merchants, like I said.
Very nice.
And there was several reasons why it became such a hub. It was close to High Street, so there was lots of markets on High Street already. But Mary King's Close, like I said, this is where it's in my notes, it was the second biggest street in Edinburgh. And it had its own market. So there's loads of opportunities for buying and selling. You couldn't ask for better if you were a merchant at the time.
Yep, that makes sense.
That's where you wanted to be. At the time Mary moved in, the street was called Alexander King's Close.
Oh.
No relation, from what people have been able to tell.
Oh, that's funny.
He was an important lawyer, so it was named after him. Mary bought herself and her children a turnpike house, which was the family home. But she also bought herself a stall to run her business. So she bought 2 properties on this close.
Fair play.
Which was a big deal, because she's doing this independently.
Yeah.
With her own money.
She's just fucking giving it to him.
Yeah.
Oh no, is she going to murder someone?
No, she doesn't murder anybody.
Huzzah! Why would they have named it after her if she was a murderer?
She didn't murder anybody. She had a very successful life. She left a will when she died in 1644. And we can tell quite a lot of things about her by her will.
Okay.
This will was made into a book.
Oh, wow.
Which is why people know that she existed. In her will, she left a whole load of like luxurious bits of furniture and decor from her home. Everything's listed. So it tells us that she had a lot of money and she indulged it. Like
Yeah.
She bought herself nice things. The house was in good condition. It was decorated well. So she was very successful.
Fair play. And now it's underground.
Now it's underground. It still bears her name.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think I've seen mixed reports on when the close was actually named after her. According to Mary King's Close, the people who run it, it was after she died that it was named after her. But for some reason, Loads of places online say that the name was changed in 1630, which would have been the year after her husband died.
Yeah. But that doesn't seem to be true.
Well, I don't see why it would have been named for her before she had done anything.
Yeah, just...
She hadn't really made a name for herself yet, I don't think.
No, because... Maybe that was her first vote.
Maybe, I don't know. It's just confusing. I think according to the people who run the close, it was like 50 years after she died that they changed the name. Because her will had been published.
Yeah.
And people were reading it.
Mental.
So I don't know why there's this disparity.
Strange.
So there's both.
There's both.
I lean more to believing the people who run the close, but who knows?
Who knows?
If you work there, you can tell me. I would love to hear all about it, because I'm not very good at this. It was quite a legacy. And a great indicator of her success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like I said, the only other one that's named after a woman in Edinburgh is Lady Stairs Close. And at one point, 45% of the properties on Mary King's Close were registered as having a female head of household.
Oh, that's
which
funny.
was unheard of.
Yeah. It's almost like that's where they all gathered.
Yeah, it was like a haven for independent women.
That's really cool. I like that a lot.
So that's where it got its name. That's why it's called Mary King's Close.
That's why it's called Mary King's Close. Not after Mary Queen of Scots.
No.
Because why would it have been?
No.
Stupid brain.
Now, Mary died in 1644, like I said, which was sad. But it may have been the kindest thing that could have happened.
Oh, what comes after?
Well, 1645 was the year of the Great Plague of Edinburgh.
Oh.
And it ravaged Mary King's Close.
Oh, no. Ew.
It's as bad as it sounds.
Yep. And that was 2 years after she died.
1 year after she died.
1 year after she died.
She died in 1644.
Yep.
And 1645 was the year of the Great Plague of Edinburgh. It is as bad as it sounds, the Great Plague of Edinburgh. Things are about to get pretty gnarly in terms of description of medical conditions and general injury here. So if you don't like it, the next portion of this episode probably isn't for you, and that's totally fine. Because it was a very significant part of the Close's history, because it was truly terrible.
Yeah, it's always worrying when the word great is used for something horrible.
And remember, I said earlier that Edinburgh had suffered plague before.
It was plaguing repeatedly, it seems.
There were 6 waves between 1497 and 1530. This is 1645. So this isn't their first round.
No, but
this was possibly the worst.
This was the plague, not just COVID.
Well, it's funny actually. I have it in my notes that a lot of the measures they took to try and stop the spread of plague are startlingly similar to things that were introduced in 2020.
Oh yeah? Crazy.
Obviously, not as bad because it wasn't plague. I'm not diminishing the experiences of people because it was awful, but it's strange having this idea of the Black Death in your head, seeing the measures they took, and then looking back a couple of years and having experienced something kind of similar.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
So I don't want to diminish how people suffered in COVID, because some people really did, and that's just the fact. But
we can be grateful it wasn't the plague.
But you have this idea of the plague in your head. I feel like, oh, that's really bad. That was the worst.
How do people get by?
So to have seen similar things in the past couple of years or so is very strange.
It's very strange, isn't it? History's always repeating itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you like to hear about the plague, Kieran?
I guess so, yeah.
Of course you would.
I have to say yes. Eilidh has a gun.
I mentioned already that this wasn't Edinburgh's first rodeo with the plague.
Yes.
In 1349, 2/3 of Edinburgh's population was wiped out.
2/3? Oh, fuck.
And then again in 1361, 1/3 of the population was killed by the disease.
Oh, no. They're down to their final, 4/6. No, that's math I can't even do.
They were so desperate in 1452 that Parliament made it totally legal to burn down the houses belonging to people infected with the plague.
I mean,
try and stop the spread.
If everyone is going to die, what else can you do? That's because all the rational people have already died of the plague.
So, that's all pretty bad. But in the 1645 outbreak, I believe it killed every 1 in 2 people.
Oh. That is less than 2/3.
I suppose so, yes. But still.
Still.
Half?
Half of everybody.
That's pretty bad.
That's mental. Jesus.
And then what made it even worse was that the previous year, 1644, had been a famine year.
Oh, no.
The harvest had been really bad. So people were still recovering. They weren't in the best of health because they hadn't had enough to eat.
For a year. Did I do that to you?
And then plague.
Then it gets a bit plaguey.
Mm-hmm. At one point, according to one of the things I read, there were only 60 healthy men to protect Edinburgh. And that was it.
Wow. I mean, that's not enough men.
No.
On the plus side, who's going to invade and risk getting the plague?
Very true. It's like a cesspit of plague.
Yep. Should we invade? I don't really want to go in there. You're going to catch something. But actually going to catch something.
So people were scared, and they were right to be.
Yes. So what did you die of if you had the plague?
Well, that's what's next in my notes, Kieran, and you didn't even know that.
No, I assumed it was coming. I teed you up. Well, hit the ball.
There were 3 different types of plague, which you might come down with. They're all caused by the same bacteria, which I'll talk about in a bit. But there were 3 different types. And this is where it gets gnarly. So if you're squeamish, you're not going to like this. This is your warning. Skip ahead at least a few minutes, basically.
I'm not allowed.
Or this whole section.
We'll see you next season, folks.
There's spooky stuff towards the end.
Okay.
You can check in for that. We will stop talking about the plague. I'm just saying it's a bit gnarly.
Yep.
Don't get mad at me, I warned you.
I'm already mad.
You can't get mad.
Oh.
That ring on your finger says you can't get mad.
Damn it. I'll take it off.
The first type of plague that you could catch was the bubonic plague, which is probably a term that you've heard of before.
Yes.
This was the most common.
Well, when I think of the plague, that's the plague I think of.
Yeah. It's because it's very visual as a disease. Because you would get these really large, swollen boils on your body. You get them in and around your armpits or your groin.
Oh, no.
And I think this is because it affected your lymph nodes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what would swell, and I'm pretty sure that's where you get them.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So yeah, really, really fucking terrible. Especially because these boils could be the size of an egg or an apple.
Oh, that's so big. That's so horribly big.
Yep.
Ugh.
Really awful.
Yep.
Very swollen, very painful. And eventually, with the way that the disease worked, is that these boils would burst. And they were filled with pus. And that's what was really deadly, because if these burst, it's still a wound. And the nasty stuff that's in the boil infects the bloodstream.
Oh,
and
no.
that makes it even more deadly than just having the disease.
Yes.
Because then it's infecting your blood.
Yep.
Which is worse.
Grim.
Along with the swollen armpits and everything else, you would have an intensely bad fever. And there's not much they could do for fever. You need antibiotics for fever if it gets really bad, like infections. You would be aching all over, and you'd be utterly exhausted.
Yeah.
So just nightmare town.
It's not good. It's just not good.
No. The next type of plague was septicemic plague.
That's got to be worse.
Well, I've alluded to it. This is when the disease, the bacteria, was infecting your bloodstream.
Yes.
And yeah, it's basically a done deal that you were going to die. If it got to that point, it was really deadly, because there's very little that could be done for you. You might survive it.
Well, that's just it. You just might survive, but you probably won't.
No, probably not. You would have all the same symptoms as the bubonic plague. If you didn't start with bubonic plague, then you didn't get the boils, I don't think.
Yep.
Because you could just catch septicemic plague. But on top of everything I said before, you would have incredibly severe stomach pains, vomiting, diarrhea. It's infecting your body is just infected.
Yeah.
You would have a great deal of internal bleeding because your bloodstream's a mess. You'd have bleeding under your skin, so lots of bruising, bleeding from your mouth and nose. The whole 9 yards.
Yep.
Truly awful. And if you got septicemic plague, you might also get gangrene.
Oh, yes, that would make sense.
Yes. This is why the plague was called the Black Death, because your fingers, toes, or nose might just turn black because the skin and everything is dying on your body. So it's called the Black Death because when that happens, your skin goes black. Mm-hmm. So that was septicemic plague.
Anyone else feel a bit sick, or is that just me?
Yeah, and this wasn't even the worst. This wasn't even the most deadly. That's the terrible part.
What's the third type?
The third type was pneumonic plague.
Oh, I see.
And this was the worst, partly because it made its way into your lungs. Mm-hmm. So made it very difficult to breathe. That is what made it so deadly. But this was also incredibly transmissible because it would make you cough. So the infection is in your lungs, you're coughing, it's spreading to people through cough droplets.
Which we do know about now.
Well, yeah, which is something we're all pretty familiar with now, but they didn't know this. And one of the reasons that this one was more deadly than septicemic plague was because there really was no hope for you. Within the space of 48 hours, you catch the disease and then you have complete respiratory failure.
Wow. 48 hours.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Possibly, it didn't happen for everybody.
Yeah.
But you were a goner.
Mental.
Because it attacks your lungs.
Man, can't clear my throat over here. 2 days later, you're dead.
Yeah, you would be like coughing up mucus and things. Really awful chest pain. And all of the symptoms I've already talked about. So fever, aching, vomiting, all of that.
It's just not good.
No.
Just very not good.
So if we think back to when they were burning people's houses down, kind of puts it into context. This is what they were scared of.
Yeah, it's... I struggle to say it, but it's kind of fair.
Like, there are no winners here.
No.
There is no completely right, no one is going to get hurt option.
No.
They were doing what they could.
Yeah.
Really. So, you kind of have to understand what it was that they were so frightened of to appreciate why people were behaving that way.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So, do you know how people caught this horrific plague, Kieran?
I think I do.
Do you want to explain?
Is it waterborne? Born?
No.
Oh, then I don't know.
I won't get too into it. But basically all you need to know is that it was transmitted through fleas and rats.
Oh, yes, actually.
So the fleas that caused the problem carried a bacteria called Yersinia pestis. And these fleas bite rats. And the rats become infected, and then the fleas and the rats can spread the disease. Usually, it would just be a cycle of flea bites the rat, and rat becomes infected, and that's it. It's just fleas and rats that are subject to this disease.
Did somebody eat the rat?
No, this particular strain of this bacteria is so deadly that the fleas were killing too many rats. So they were running out of... because they become parasitic when they have this bacteria. They were running out of hosts to live off of. So they moved to humans.
Oh.
Because rats were attracted to where humans congregated.
Yes.
So it changed the cycle.
Grim.
So it's one of those things where it was just between animals, but then got transmitted to humans.
Yep.
Rats carried these fleas into human dwellings because they were attracted to food, but also to filth.
Which we've gone into in depth. It was very, very filthy.
Yes, if you think about Mary King's Close, as we described it, that's why the disease ran rampant through this part of the city. And because people were living so close together.
I think you mean through this part of the shitty.
Yes, I do, actually. That's exactly what I meant. Yeah, people were living so close together. Remember, you'd have multiple families living across different floors. Everything's really close and narrow. You're throwing shit into the street.
Yup.
So that's how it all kind of came to be.
Yes.
And particularly with Edinburgh, but also Leith nearby, which I guess is now part of Edinburgh because it's grown, but they were impacted particularly badly because you had ships coming in from Europe to the ports there.
Oh, okay.
That were carrying the rats. So you might get over a wave, but then ships come in and they didn't know rats were the problem.
Yeah. When did they, you might not know, when did they find out rats were the problem?
1800s? I think the late 18... It was either early or late 1800s.
Yeah.
I can't remember. But it was later that they discovered.
A good deal later.
They didn't know what the problem was, which is why they couldn't fight it properly.
No.
We're going to talk a little bit about that.
It's kind of like just fighting a ghost, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah. And Edinburgh wasn't the only city that suffered from this. It was all over Europe and Asia. I read this about Paris. In medieval Paris, several street names were inspired by merde, the French word for shit. There were Rue Murdo, Rue Merdelais, Rue Merdesson, Rue de Merdon, and Rue Merdier, as well as Rue de Pipi.
Rue de Pipi.
So Edinburgh wasn't the only city that was pouring shit into the street.
It wasn't the only shitty.
No, it was not the only shitty. So that's part of the reason it spread as rampantly as it did throughout Europe, because that's how people were living.
They didn't have any other choice.
And like you alluded to, people didn't understand how the plague was spreading, but they did have their own theories.
Yes.
So your suggestion was through water. Not a silly suggestion at all, because the water was filthy.
Yeah.
And it had its own issues and its own diseases. But do you want to hear what people thought the plague might have been?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this little chunk is from the National Geographic website.
Oh, yeah.
So here we go. Many explanations of the plague were proposed, most wrapped up in religious or superstitious assumptions. Those closest to scientific reality were based on classical Greek medicine, attributing the sickness to miasmas, the invisible corruption in the air emanating from decomposing matter and supposedly absorbed by the body either by breathing or through skin contact. So that's one theory.
Yep.
Some accounts suggested astrological causes, blaming the plague on the conjunction of certain planets, eclipses, or the sighting of a comet. Others blamed natural phenomena, volcanic eruptions, and seismic tremors releasing deadly gases. But even these explanations were widely believed to have an underlying cause: divine wrath at the sinfulness of humankind.
Yeah, that makes sense, the final part.
Right? I actually read, I can't remember where I came across it, because I didn't see it again in my research in as much detail, but one of the nicknames given to the plague was the English sweat. And in Scotland particularly, the belief was that the plague was God punishing the English. Genuinely.
I mean, that does sound right.
So a fair bit of blame was put on soldiers coming back from England.
Yeah.
Because they believed they were taking it and it was an English problem. They were being punished by God. And that's how it spread into Scotland.
I don't see how you couldn't blame God.
It's so horrifically terrible.
Yeah, and it's so visual. And then...
Well, it's like one of the great plagues from the Bible.
Yeah, and then 1 in 2 people. Like, that's going to be most of your loved ones. Unless your family somehow kept away.
And for some reason, I feel like it would be comforting to know that it's an act of God. Because terrifying to believe that there's this thing you can't fight that just happens.
Yep.
I think that's even worse. At least then it has some purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a sort of strange comfort in that.
Well, it's happening for a reason.
Yep.
So it will end once the reason has been carried out.
Once the not righteous have been smote.
Yeah, you know?
Or something.
The main theory that National Geographic said there is the one that was most widely subscribed to in Edinburgh.
Uh-huh.
So there was a lot of religious belief about the plague, but most people believed that the plague was airborne. So you were breathing it in, or it was in the air, just this kind of gas, this miasma, and you were in contact with it on your skin or your clothes, and that's how it was passing from person to person, which I don't think is stupid.
No, I don't think so.
Especially at the rate it's spreading.
Yeah.
You just believe that it's everywhere. Kind of like COVID.
Yeah.
You know, early 2020, you just believe it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's just in the air. That's why you wore your mask outside and things.
You know, like, it's not an unreasonable assumption.
No, I don't think so at all.
So there's all this fear of this deadly disease, and Edinburgh Council introduced measures to try and contain it. So did Parliament. Like, there were things that applied to the whole country, but we're going to talk about the things that applied in Edinburgh specifically.
Yeah.
Because that's how people in Mary King's Close were living. So some of these might sound familiar to you. It's weird, but they might. People were forbidden from leaving the city or coming into the city, and accounts from the time actually complain about rich people packing up their nopes and leaving Edinburgh to just get on with it instead of staying put like they were told to. Moving out into the country, away from the city.
Into their second homes.
Breaking regulation.
Sounds familiar.
And they actually ended up being issued with a tax to help pay for food and supplies for the poor who were still in the city.
I say that's a good idea.
Right? Who were sick or they couldn't work because someone had to pay to feed them and they couldn't do it themselves.
Yeah.
So the people who left the city to go and stay in their second and third mansion country homes were taxed.
Yeah, nice. I like that.
I think it was a good idea. What's even worse is that records from 1645 show that members of Edinburgh Council left the city and abandoned everyone to their fate.
Oh, to a point you can't blame them.
Fear makes people do very selfish things.
Yeah. I don't think I can say if I was in their position, I wouldn't have done that. Surrounded by all this filth and death, and I have somewhere I can go, I'd be like, yeah, pack up my family, pack up the dog, and let's just leave.
Oh yeah, you can't blame people for being afraid.
No.
But a very selfish move to abandon thousands of people to just death. I think there were about 30 to 35,000 people living in Edinburgh at that time, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
You could be punished if you were suffering from the plague but tried to hide it and go about your business anyway. Because people needed money.
Yep.
So, they might chance it, go and man the stall, go about their business.
There was no furlough.
Nothing like that. You could be punished. A woman called Marion Clerk was drowned after she went to go and visit her sister, but Marion was still contagious. She was still recovering, and she didn't stay at home. So they executed her.
Well, I mean, that's maybe a bit severe.
Yeah, they drowned her for that.
But also kind of fair enough.
They were taking it very seriously. You had to keep pets and livestock contained, so they couldn't roam the street anymore. You had to keep them inside or in a pen. And if you couldn't do that, you had to put them down.
Oh, dang.
Because they weren't sure whether animals were spreading it.
Well, they were close.
Or the belief was animals were part of the filth.
Yeah.
So they were part of the problem, creating this miasma.
Cows be farting.
Cows be farting. Luckily, if you couldn't keep your kids contained, they would just be put in the stocks and whipped. You wouldn't have to put them down.
Well, they'd only do that once.
They had very strict curfews that you couldn't leave the house.
Yeah. Sort of like a lockdown.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is quite weird. I'm glad we didn't do this episode in like season 1 when we were still in lockdown.
Oh, it would have been very depressing.
Yeah. That would have been bizarre.
It's like all those people when lockdown started who were watching like Contagion.
Oh, yeah.
So why?
Why are you doing that to yourself?
I still haven't seen that movie and I don't really want to watch it.
No, I'm good. I'm good, thanks.
If teachers who had been working in the city tried to keep their schools running, they could be banished permanently.
Ooh, getting banished. You don't get a lot of banishment anymore, do you?
No.
Imagine being...
At least not legally. You just might have your close turn on you.
Yeah, you could upset your neighbours that much. Imagine being banished
There's an interesting... It's a true crime story. I can't remember the guy. He was a fucking horrendous murderer.
Uh-huh.
What's her name? Bear with me. I want to tell this story. Just took a brief break because I wanted to get my facts right. But you were just talking about how you don't get banished anymore.
Yep.
We'll talk about it in this week's Blether on Monday. But there was a really interesting and very inspiring case, true crime case, where a murderer was released from prison. He'd served his time. And then the community that he was moving into ran him out of town.
Oh my God.
And the guardian angels got involved.
The guardian angels?
Yeah, You're asking me to check an awful lot here. Yeah, so the guardian angels started as a group in New York to try and fight crime.
Oh!
They're not armed or anything, they're volunteers.
Yeah.
They came together with the local community and ran him out of town.
Crazy.
For what he had done. They didn't want him living there.
Wow.
So we can talk about that in the Blether.
Yes.
I have my facts straight now. Yeah, just talking about how you don't get banished anymore.
Some people do.
He did.
Anyway, teachers could be banished.
Yes, if they tried to keep their school open, because they didn't want people gathering. So you can't have schools running.
Yep.
Which again sounds familiar.
Does sound familiar.
Some of the schools were moved outside the city and were still running, but very few parents were sending their children there.
Yeah, lest they be plagued.
Mm-hmm. They were just keeping them at home.
Fair enough.
Merchants weren't allowed to work. They couldn't keep their booths open because it encouraged people to gather and could transmit the disease.
Oh man, but merchants got a merch, you know.
Mm-hmm. They've got merch. They're not anymore.
Oh no.
And people at one point were actually boiling the coins that they received if they were operating to try and keep them clean.
Very nice.
Which is pretty clever.
Yeah.
Because they didn't fully understand why that would work. They were just trying to encourage cleanliness.
Not bad at all. When we were at Leith Hall, we got shown where the table was where all the rents were collected.
Oh, yeah.
And we got told it was a table with a big dimple right in the middle. And it's so the farmers and everyone would put their money into there. And the lord of the castle wouldn't actually have to touch it because he didn't want to catch anything off the poor people. So I imagine it was then scooped up from there and boiled. There's a good chance.
Probably, yeah. Well, that's what they were doing in Edinburgh, trying to reduce how much was being passed between people. The plague disrupted every part of life, made it really difficult for people to operate as they were. They couldn't make enough money to live on, and it was difficult to get food to Edinburgh in the first place because the markets weren't open.
Yep.
So although farmers were still gathering food and working as they had been, they couldn't sell it.
Yeah.
Because you can't take it to market. So unless you lived near a farm, you couldn't really buy any food.
No. And then the farmers couldn't make their money. Mm-hmm. And it's just the impact goes out from Edinburgh, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. So not good.
Not good.
More severe regulations included moving infected people out of their homes to live somewhere else altogether. So quarantining them all together so they didn't infect anyone else. And everyone just kind of hoped they survived out there.
Yeah. You probably won't, but if you do, you can come home again.
Yeah.
Probably.
One of the quarantine spots was in what is now the Meadows in Edinburgh.
Oh, yeah.
And another one was on the Links in Leith, which probably makes more sense if you live there. People called Baileys would come and take infected people to these quarantine settlements on carts, either hand-pulled or horse-drawn. And before people would be taken into these, I'm calling them settlements because there was lots of little huts made for them. They were temporary. Before they were taken into these settlements, their clothes would be taken from them.
Yep.
And they would boil everyone's clothes in these big giant kettles to try and clean them and get rid of the disease.
Yeah.
Because remember, they think it's airborne, so they think it's clinging to your clothes. And they'd be given a nightgown until they got their clothes back. So they were taking measures to try and keep people safe.
Well, they were still trying to do the best with the knowledge they had and the means they had.
Mm-hmm. And if you're having better hygiene, it's less likely to attract rats. So it is kind of solving the problem.
Well, it probably is helping, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And going to these settlements wasn't a voluntary thing. If you came down with the plague, you had to tell the Baileys about your condition within 12 hours. And I think this would be done, the Bailey would make his way round and you would like tell him.
Yep.
It was usually a man. You couldn't stay at home if you had the plague. You had to leave. And I can't imagine how hard that must have been because you wouldn't know if you were coming back.
No.
And I feel like most people, if you know it's going to be that bad, well, I'd rather die at home.
Yeah,
my
you
home,
would.
you know?
But then you wouldn't want to infect your family.
Mm-hmm. If you have symptoms, they're probably already infected.
Yeah.
Because it would take a couple of days sometimes for symptoms to show, but you would be contagious. You would have it.
Oh, no.
I don't know if they knew that then, but
That's
how it worked. If you didn't tell the Bailey and you tried to just stay at home, you could be executed.
Well.
So if the plague didn't get you, the executioner would.
Yeah. Stay at home actually managed to beat the plague and then get executed.
And then if you did leave, there was no guarantee your belongings would still be there when you came back.
Oh, yeah.
Because some people would take the chance to rob an infected home and get the good stuff.
Yep.
But if you were caught doing this, you could be executed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for some people, it was worth it.
Yep. You're not usually thinking of the consequences, are you?
Mm-mm. Or you weigh up the risk.
Yeah.
As well as moving lots of people, there were volunteers called foul clangers who were employed to try and clean the streets.
Oh.
Since people believed that all of the filth and the shit was probably making things worse, which it was.
It certainly was.
Just not for the reasons that they believed.
No.
These foul clangers washed the streets, so they were scrubbing everything and trying to make it all run down to the loch.
Yep.
And they were the ones who were burying the plague dead.
Ooh.
Because so many people were dying, there were bodies just everywhere.
There would be, wouldn't there?
Because if a whole family dies, who's going to bury them?
Yeah.
It's really, really fucking grim. And this is why there were mass graves dug in various places around Edinburgh to meet this demand. So you can think about that next time you're having your picnic and all that lovely stuff. A rule was actually brought in at this time that if you couldn't afford your own coffin, you weren't getting one.
Oh, wow.
It wouldn't be provided for you. So you had to have enough money like set aside to pay for your coffin. If you couldn't afford one, you would be buried in a blanket and mass graves.
And that's just it?
Yep. And the foul clangers also fumigated houses of infected people.
Ooh.
Which I didn't know.
No.
They'd burn things like gorse and heather.
Oh.
So if you don't know what those are, they're very woody, tough plants that you find pretty much everywhere. Usually like open glens and mountains and things. They're quite hardy plants. Gorse has thorns on it and yellow flowers, and heather's purple. You've probably seen heather if you're not in the UK.
Yes.
Because they thought the smoke would help get rid of the disease in the air.
Oh. It might scare away rats.
Maybe. They thought it would cleanse the building.
Well, they were trying. Can't fault them for that.
I think it was pretty smart.
Yeah.
Really. But unfortunately, sometimes they did this and then they set the house on fire. So I think this happened a few times, and then when they would carry on this practice, they would make sure they had buckets of water before they started, so that if things started actually catching fire, then they could put it out quicker.
Well, you've got to... Yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful.
Yep.
Ooh.
So these Baileys and foul clangers were doing all of this in Mary King's Close.
Yes.
Because I know that we're talking an awful lot about plague, and the episode is about this specific place, but this is what was happening there.
Yeah.
At that time, they would be going through. Now, Baileys and foul clangers, from what I saw, they were usually volunteers.
I was wondering who was doing these jobs.
Yeah. Basically, they would ask you to do it, and if you said no, they would put you in prison.
Well.
So, you did it.
Yeah, you would, wouldn't you?
And you'd be paid, I believe.
Maybe they built up the best immune system.
Well, usually, if you had survived the plague, you would be ordered to do these jobs.
Oh, well, that is quite clever.
So they thought about that.
Yeah.
I don't think they understood it, but they obviously saw these people knew they had survived it, so there was something about them that meant it didn't affect them as badly. So then they would have to do all of these horrible jobs.
So you've got a 50% chance of survival, and then if you survive, this is your reward.
Yeah.
Grim. Yeah, I'm with the privy councillors. I'm just out. I'm going to my second home. Fuck this.
But that's the thing, though. It affected places all over the country. In our Hugh Miller episode, we talked about plague in Cromarty.
We did indeed.
Which is just over the water from here, and it's a much smaller place, but similar problem.
Similar problem.
They had to quarantine ships. People couldn't leave the port anymore.
Okay, I'm going to go live in Sonny Bean's cave.
Now, there's an enduring rumour about Mary King's Close during the plague, because lots of people who were living there had the plague.
Mm-hmm.
There's a rumour that the council completely bricked up the close, with everyone inside it, healthy or not, and just left them there to die.
I've heard this rumour.
I don't think it's true.
Oh.
I did my research, I checked. It seems like the story is half true, but not as bad as that.
Yeah.
So, the people who were living on Mary King's Close were quarantined there. They weren't allowed to leave. They shut it off completely, so people couldn't come and go.
Uh-huh.
But they weren't bricked in there and then just left. Food and supplies would be brought to them while they were in there.
Oh, well, that's good.
But you couldn't go into other parts of the city from there.
Interesting.
With me?
Was it physically bricked up?
No, I don't believe it was bricked up. I think it was closed off.
Yep.
So that you couldn't come and go.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't bricked up indefinitely and then they were left to die there.
Interesting.
That's not how it happened.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, that's not what happened.
Allegedly.
They still cared about the people there, but they weren't allowed to leave because so many people, there was such a high concentration of people with the plague there that they had to cut it off.
Yeah, it was just a bit of a plague hotspot.
Yeah. So rather than taking everyone from there and moving them, they just kept them there.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Right?
Yep.
So they were given food and supplies, and throughout all of Edinburgh, including Mary King's Close, plague doctors were going around to try and deliver treatment and save as many people as they could.
Fucking creepy.
Very, very, very creepy. So you might be wondering, what is a plague doctor? What could a plague doctor do?
Yep.
Because this disease is just death.
It's not the plague who's sick. They don't need the doctors.
But if you've heard of a plague doctor before, you probably have a very striking silhouette in your head.
Yeah.
Because they had very distinct outfits, uniforms that they had to wear.
You probably know the outfit, even if you don't know that's who it belongs to.
Yes. Yeah. Edinburgh's first plague doctor was a man called John Policius.
Policious delicious.
I couldn't find anything about him.
Oh.
I couldn't find anything more than him being the first plague doctor.
Oh, that seems a shame.
The only thing I really know about him is that he died of the plague.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah. He didn't survive the plague that year.
Well, only half of the people did, so fair enough.
Yeah. So a man called Dr. George Ray took over as a plague doctor, and he was far more successful than John had been. He really was a true hero of Mary King's Close, although he probably caused people a lot of pain. He operated along the close and all the streets running off it, trying to help the people who lived there.
Yep.
And if you were living there at the time and saw him wandering about, you would see him wearing a long, thick leather coat with a hood, I think.
I think so.
He also wore a mask that looked like a very long beak.
Yep.
And this was usually hollow and filled with herbs and spices, which they believed would keep the miasmas away.
Yeah.
So he'd be breathing in these herbs instead of the air.
They're horrible big masks with the big...
They're really awful.
beak.
They look, if you know about the Venetian Carnival, they've got masks that look a bit like plague masks.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the reason that George wasn't killed by the plague was not by avoiding breathing in miasmas in the air. like people thought. What kept him safe as he treated people was actually his long coat and thick boots.
Which kept the fleas away.
Yes.
Yeah.
It stopped the fleas and it stopped the rats. Because if you were bitten by a rat, then you would also get the plague.
Grim.
So he had these covering him. Nothing could touch him. So it wasn't the mask. Although it probably helped because it probably stopped him breathing in just nastiness.
Yeah.
And some people were coughing plague, so he wasn't going to get that. But it was his coat and it was his boots that kept him the most safe.
Very nice. Very nice. I read about in places where leprosy is rampant, the rats eat people's toes and fingers because they lose all feeling in them.
Oh, Kieran.
For other grim things that rats do.
Oh.
While they're sleeping.
Oh.
So there you go.
Oh my God. I've been scarred by that fact.
Yep.
I will never not know that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So there you go.
So, bubonic plague.
Back to the plague at hand.
That's what George is trying to treat. And I don't think it was just him, but medical professionals generally came up with a way to try and save people if they had bubonic plague. So I explained that they had the big boils and they would burst and become septic, and that was really deadly. There was no coming back from that. So medical professionals like George looked at that and thought, if we can stop that from happening, then it won't infect the rest of the body. So they would lance the boil, which means cutting it open.
Yep.
If you don't know. Before it burst, that was the key thing. Because if it created a wound, you'd become infected. So they had to do it beforehand. They had to clean everything out, make sure there was no infection, get rid of everything, and then cauterize the wound again.
Yes.
With hot metal.
Yes. I was aware of this.
Yes.
And it's horrendous.
Truly horrific, but he saved lives. Because he cut this off before it got any worse. So awful.
But effective.
But kind of a hero.
Yeah. I mean, it beats death. That probably, that amount of
Even
pain.
if that's all you have, you're doing all right.
You're doing okay.
George spent months in and around Mary King's Close. And I think the rest of the city, but a lot of time in Mary King's Close with all the quarantine people. Because I'm fairly certain while he was there, he couldn't leave either.
Oh, that would make sense.
I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that. But he was exposing himself to this dangerous disease all day, every day. And one of the reasons he was doing this was slightly different to the Baileys and the Foul Clingers. He had been promised a fortune in return for his services from Edinburgh Council.
See, that's fair enough.
A huge monthly salary.
Absolutely fair.
For what he was doing. So it was worth it.
Yep.
Basically.
Meanwhile, the council are just banking on him dying and then they won't have to pay him. So
Literally. The plague eventually started abating in 1647. So it was particularly bad in the summer of 1645.
Yeah.
And things were considerably calmer by 1647.
That's a long time.
So George approached the council for his wages that he'd been promised for his services rendered, and the council refused to pay him.
What? Just flat out refused?
Yeah, they wouldn't give him anything.
Oh my God.
Because they had counted on him dying.
Yeah.
Literally, they had no intention of giving him the money that they owed him.
Oh.
Because it was, I was just going to make it up there, that's silly, but the monthly wage was extortionate. And for the service that he was providing,
totally reasonable.
He earned it, but they didn't pay him anything.
What did he do? Can he sue them?
Well, he pursued them for 10 years to get them to pay what they owed.
Yeah.
But he died.
Oh.
So by all accounts, he never got the money that he was owed for saving people during the literal plague.
That is criminal. But you know, you can be criminal when you're in power.
Yeah.
That's what politics teaches you.
And you know, no one's left alive, so... How bad is that?
So bad. Absolutely
Horrifying
brutal.
when I read that.
Not good.
No.
Bunch of arseholes. But thank goodness for him and all his hard work.
Yeah, saved potentially thousands of people.
Yep. He must have, like, whenever he went home and threw all his windows open for some fresh air, took off his plague jacket and such. I wonder if every time he, like, sneezed, he just went, oh.
Oh, God.
Was that a sneeze or was that just...
Every like, itch.
Yeah.
Every spot.
Oh, man, my back's really sore. Oh. Is that normal back sore? I've been on my feet a lot. Or...
But then I wonder, like, how much rest he actually got, because certainly with like, COVID, emergency workers had a hell of a time.
Well, that's true.
Like, a lot of them barely got home.
Yeah.
So you wonder what kind of rest or what kind of home he was going home to.
Very true. Very true.
So all in all, the plague was a terrible and seismic event for Mary King's Close.
Plague equals bad.
Yes, and Edinburgh generally.
Yep. That we can all agree on.
Which is why I brought it up.
Yeah.
And if you go to see Mary King's Close, they have a lot of exhibits and things about the plague and about George Ray in particular, who spent a lot of time there. But we can move on.
Let's move on.
Plague is over.
Whew, we made it.
We survived.
We have survived hearing about the plague, and that's the same.
No.
It's
not the same.
Oh. Well, it's what we've done.
It was during the 1700s, so a bit later, that Mary King's Close started looking more like it does today. It was decided that the many merchants that I've told you about already were making Edinburgh look untidy. It was a bit worse than that, I'm kidding. There were so many of them in the centre of Edinburgh that they blocked a good deal of the centre of the town. You couldn't get past, you couldn't get through, there were so many. So Edinburgh Council came together and decided in the 1750s that they would build a, quote, covered place of exchange, unquote, for merchants to trade in and have their stalls, which would free up the streets.
Sounds good, yep.
But like I said way back at the beginning, everything in Edinburgh has been built on.
Yeah.
Because it's a big city and has been for a while. So they decided that they were going to build a new Royal Exchange building where Mary King's Close was.
Oh.
And to do this, they had to build on top of the street and close it off.
Crazy.
It took 7 years to build it, and they built it on the top of Mary King's Close. Remember I said it's on a hill?
Yeah.
So this is at the top. They demolished the upper levels of some of the houses and then built a new like vaulted ceiling on the ones that were left to create the floor of the Royal Exchange.
Crazy.
So they cut it off along the top.
Yep.
And then just built on top of it.
They just splattered it down on top.
Yeah, so it sent a huge portion of the streets underground.
Mental. Where they still lived in.
I mean, obviously not the ones that were demolished.
Well, but the underground street was still inhabited.
Yeah.
That's mental.
Yeah, people were still living there. People were still operating business from there. Just, it was underground now.
Yeah. Just now they're mole people.
So that's why it's underground. Not because it was bricked up for the plague. It's because they built the Royal Exchange on it.
Well, that makes more sense, doesn't it?
But the irony, and I have to wonder if the council planned this and did it on purpose. I have to wonder. The merchants didn't want the Royal Exchange building. They didn't want to trade there.
No.
They wanted to be out on the street where they're visible, I'm assuming.
And where everyone's walking past.
Yeah, they don't want to be in the building.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't go. So the exchange building was kept by the council for themselves. And it became the city chambers.
Yeah.
Which is what it's known as today.
I thought, when you said earlier what was on top of it, you said city chambers, but I couldn't remember. I'm like, oh, sure. You didn't say like market hall or something.
Nope. And the city chambers, you can see it today. It's a really big, grand building.
Yes.
Very opulent looking. And the close is underneath it.
Should we just keep this? Yeah, should we, why don't we go here? I mean, it's pretty nice, right? It's two of those grubby merchants out there. They just clutter up the place.
After 7 years of working on it.
7 years. Cheeky bastards. Fair play to the merchants, though. Much more better being out.
They're just like, nope. Don't want that.
No.
So people carried on living and working in Mary King's Close. They didn't all leave. It wasn't abandoned. But I think it was over more and more time, more of it became closed off and built on top of. And like gradually, it didn't all happen at once. So people gradually started moving to other parts of the city.
Yeah.
Because the city was growing. I think the Flodden Wall came down. When did it come down? 1700s, I think. I think it was around this time they got rid of the wall so they could expand the city.
Yeah.
So you've got new parts of town coming up and money's moving around. Everything's very fluid.
Yep, that makes sense. You probably wouldn't want to live underground especially either. So if you could leave and got the chance to leave, I imagine you would.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It becomes a less desirable area. It happens over time in lots of different cities and countries. By the 1800s, Mary King's Close was a much spookier place to go. I actually read that it became a challenge for Victorian children to run from one end of the enclosed closes to the other.
Nice.
At night, in the dark.
Yeah.
It was like a dare. Because it was largely empty, but not abandoned yet. But far fewer people were living there.
Yes, it's just asking for trouble, isn't it?
So all that being said, when do you think the last resident moved out of Mary King's Close?
If the exchange was built around 1757, if it took 7 years, I'm going to say like 1812.
Okay, good guess. It was actually in 1902.
1902. Damn. I'm not moving if I don't have to.
Literally. The Chesney family had been living on Mary King's Close, and Andrew Chesney was the man of the house, and he had been a saw maker. He was the last man living on the close in 1902. I think the council had been trying to buy Andrew out for some time, because in 1902 he was forced to leave through compulsory purchase. He had to leave. They bought his house from him, but he couldn't say no. Yeah.
I mean, if he's the only person left living there, it's kind of fair enough.
But doesn't he have the right? It's his home.
It's his home, but...
Doesn't he have the right to live there as long as he wants?
No, get it.
I don't think it's right that they could force him to leave, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I feel like you can't force someone to go.
I get that. I think that's fair. But I'm also just like, stop being obstinate. Just leave. Get somewhere nicer to live.
Well, I guess that's the argument, isn't it? Because it wasn't pleasant.
No. I know it's your shithole, but it's a shithole. And we're going to pay you double what it's worth to buy a nice house out in the sun.
Well, speaking of shithole, one of the things that you'll see if you go to visit Mary King's Close is the thing that Andrew was the most proud of.
Oh, yeah.
And it was something called his Thunderbox. And this was a big deal because Andrew had himself an indoor toilet.
Oh.
This was the Thunderbox.
Very nice.
And he used to use it with the door open onto the street so that people who were going past could see him using his indoor toilet.
That's a point of pride, isn't it?
That's a man.
That's a man shitting with the door open.
Yep.
It's always strange. Don't do that.
But after Andrew left, Mary King's Close was empty.
Well, there you go.
Nobody lived there anymore. The houses were largely empty. There wasn't much left in them. Some of them still had wallpaper on the walls, which you can still see. And some of them you can still see even older remnants of the people who used to live there from back in the 15 and 1600s, when if you couldn't afford wallpaper, you would use a wood print on the wall to create a pattern.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
Some of that is still there.
Cool.
But Mary King's Close became completely dark, echoing, and just a relic from another era. But some people don't believe it was ever truly abandoned.
Oh, we're getting to the spooky portion of the episode.
Can you tell? Mary King's Close has the reputation of being one of the most haunted places in Scotland. And when you consider how dangerous, filthy, and plague-ridden and tragic the close was, it makes sense that spirits might linger there.
It's fair enough, really, isn't it?
I mean, it makes sense to me. I know it doesn't make sense to you.
No.
So let's talk about the spooky stories.
Let's talk ghosts, people.
This might be a bit surprising, but stories of hauntings on the close go all the way back to the 1600s.
There you go.
People have been creeped out on the close for a very, very long time.
Spooking through the ages.
Thomas Colthart, or Colthart, it's Coltheart, Colthart, and his wife had some really strange experiences in their home that they had bought on the close.
Okay.
Not long after moving in. And this was in the 1600s. The maid that they hired fled the property almost as soon as she entered the place.
Oh my God.
Because she believed their house was haunted. She wouldn't enter again. She wouldn't work there. She refused.
Damn.
Like, immediately.
I can't imagine being that compelled by a feeling that somewhere's haunted. That's so alien to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's ghosts, not aliens.
Woo.
After this event, both Thomas and his wife claim that they saw a disembodied man's head floating through their home.
That would be a sight.
How scary would that be?
That would be pretty damn scary. But it's funny that they only started seeing ghosts after someone told them it was haunted.
Shut up. Thomas's wife fainted at what they saw. She was that scared. And they later claimed that they saw the ghost of a child running through their home.
Creepy. Ghost children.
As well as a disembodied arm, which apparently beckoned them to come towards it. Which is terrifying.
That's our second disembodied arm.
Yeah.
That's our second ghost arm.
Which you wouldn't think.
No.
But imagine it just like curling a finger, like, come here.
Don't worry, love. He looks armless enough.
That was bad.
Thank you.
The quote that I saw describing this apparition actually called it a severed arm. And I feel there's a difference between disembodied and severed. Because disembodied is just like, it's just an arm.
And yeah, it is without body.
But severed suggests that it's been cut off.
Yes. One's definitely bloodier.
Yeah. Further to that, Thomas and his wife saw lots of different animal spirits running around their house.
Oh.
They saw a ghost dog and a ghost cat, various other things that they couldn't describe.
I mean, from the state of the close, they could have just been actual animals.
But they were like ghostly.
Yeah.
I feel you could tell the difference.
You would think so, but...
They actually said that the ghost dog appeared several times. They saw it on multiple occasions. And they would watch it come into their living room, jump up into one of the chairs, and curl up to sleep. Which would be kind of nice.
Yeah, there's... If you were going to get haunted by anything, that's what you'd want to be haunted by.
Like, I'm not mad at that.
No, not at all.
But they also reported hearing strange, deep groans in their home. Which would be much scarier.
Yeah, that would be spookier.
Several weeks after seeing all of their ghosts and having all of their encounters, Thomas actually became really ill. And this is after the plague went through the close. This was in 1685.
Oh, okay.
So it's not plague. But he had fever, he had chills all over his body, and it seems like he was suffering from hallucinations and terrors while he was in this sickness.
Been there.
Well, while he was in his fever, Thomas claimed to see crows circling above his bed where he lay.
That would be terrifying.
The way they do when something's about to die.
Yeah.
Or they're scavenging a dead body.
Oh, no.
That's what he saw when he was lying in bed.
That would mess you up. Do you think he caught ghost plague?
Ghost plague. Ooh, ghost plague doctor?
Ooh. That would change you.
Creepy. And Thomas died soon after this.
Oh, well, that's a shame.
So the wondering is if he foretold his own death.
Ooh.
Seeing the crows.
Maybe he's just that ill.
Well, obviously he was that ill. You're no fun. It's after Halloween and you're just not up for it anymore.
Boo, Kieran, boo.
So what do you think about that? That's people living there 400 years ago.
I mean, it's cool. It's got such a long haunted history.
They weren't the only people either. Lots of people claim to see and experience ghosts on the close during this time.
Yeah, it's having been there in modern times, I wasn't there in the 1600s. It's a very spooky place. It certainly has the vibe of somewhere you'd expect to be haunted.
This was when it was above ground, remember?
Yes, but even still
creepy.
With that closeness and then knowing about all the horrors that happen there.
It would have smelled worse then.
Yes.
Now, I do actually have a theory for you.
Oh. I just punched my microphone in excitement.
As to why these sightings happened at this time. And I think you're going to like it.
Tell me.
Because it's a pretty good theory and explanation as to why people saw what they saw. Gas.
Gas.
Specifically, biogas.
Yeah, I'm sure we talked about this before at some point. Was it gas from the loch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quote, biogas is a mixture of gases, primarily consisting of methane, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide, produced from raw materials such as agricultural waste, manure, municipal waste, plant material, sewage, green waste, and food waste.
Oh.
It is a renewable energy source.
It is.
Unquote.
Our house is partially fueled on biogas.
Ooh, that's just Kieran.
Whoa.
So, these sightings were happening in the 15 and 1600s. Did you just fart?
It was my shoe. I got my heel on it. It made a little toot sound.
I thought you were doing it for the bit.
I'm just adding some stink for atmosphere.
The 15 and 1600s. At this time, the Nora Loch still existed. I told you about the man-made loch. Rank, disgusting, polluted, filthy, awful. Mary King's Close was the closest street to this loch.
Yeah.
There were irrigated gardens between the loch and the close. So it was right on the edge. It was about as close as you could get.
Yeah.
The Nora Loch was so polluted that it actually created marsh gas, which is this biogas.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. So we might have talked about it in the Greyfriars episode. I honestly can't remember.
Yeah.
Which is really bad. I can't have gone into it in this much depth because a lot of this was new to me, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember where we talked about it before, but
I'll check.
yeah, it's fine.
But I'll explain it here because I didn't remember.
Please do.
Yeah, it was so polluted it created this marsh gas because this loch is completely stagnant. I cannot explain how grim this loch was.
Oh, it sounds horrendous.
It sent this marsh gas into the air and into Mary King's Close.
Oh.
And this type of biogas has been attributed to hauntings, believe it or not.
Crazy.
Because it can cause hallucinations if people are breathing it in. And this marsh gas is so bad, it can create eerie lights in the air. Because of the stuff in it.
Whoa. I'm surprised when they had fish oil lamps there weren't just explosions.
Well, I wonder if that's what made the lights.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really not sure. Here's what I read from... I can't remember where I got this from.
Sources.
I have all my sources. I can't remember specifically which one. Marsh gas displays all the classic symptoms of ghostly visitation, and every low-lying area in the world has mythologies of grey ladies, bearded old men, and other wraith-like spirits. Marsh gas is lighter than air and hovers with a slight luminous glow until dispersed or dissolved in the air, and given the right mixture, will burn with a blue flame.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's not difficult to picture the effects of wispy gas pockets collecting in the houses of the closest nether regions, trapped and unable to escape upwards, and with insufficient air unable to dissolve quickly. That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. You've got to watch out for gases in your nether regions.
Yep, especially if you're Kieran. But doesn't that make sense? Because there's nowhere for it to go.
Yeah, it would just sit there.
So if it's going into people's homes, they're going to see the gas, just as gas, and not know what it is.
And it would definitely look, or it could definitely look like it just kind of phased through your wall.
It's glowing.
You look at it for a bit, scream, and it just disappears.
And then the gas itself causes hallucinations. So you would be seeing the gas and possibly having a hallucination about looking at the gas. I was very excited about this theory.
I like it a lot. It's very compelling. I think we talked to bring your
You're
points.
so excited.
Just bring your points together.
It's okay, it's the last episode. It's fine.
We talked in the Grey Man episode a great deal about environmental factors impacting your kind of judgment and awareness.
We did.
So I like this. This is another one. Not to add to that, I don't think there's marsh gas up Ben McDooey. But
No, but natural reasons.
yeah, in general, I really like hearing about the way these things can just alter your perception of the world. It's crazy.
Well, on top of all that, the Nor Loch was drained in 1760, which I think is when they took down the Flodden Wall. From then on, the number of reported hauntings and spirit sightings dropped significantly.
That's so interesting.
There's no more gas.
No
because
more
there's
gas?
No more loch.
I did wonder how you got rid of a loch, but then I also wondered how you created a loch in the first place. So presumably one of them is just doing the other one backwards.
So what do you think?
I think that's definitely the reason for reported hauntings, undoubtedly. But it's also just fair enough. You know, like you can't fight that. You can't understand that. I think even today that would get a lot of people. And there's probably a lot of modern sightings of ghosts that could be attributed to that.
I would be really interested to know which places are liable to be susceptible to that, and if there are any reports of people seeing ghosts.
Yeah, super interesting.
So we have this marsh gas theory.
Yes.
But the strange thing is that ghost sightings picked up again when Mary King's Close was opened up again in the 90s.
Oh.
Recently.
That's interesting.
And there's no more Nor Loch to explain it away.
Yeah. Now it's just people feeling spooky.
So we're going to talk about it.
I appreciate that.
People have seen a strange man wandering around the close when no one is supposed to be there. And they've described him as worried looking.
Interesting.
And the claim is that this is Andrew Chesney.
Oh.
Who never left because he didn't want to leave his home.
Interesting.
People believe that they've seen him.
This brings us back to something I bring up all the time, of it depends what your ghost lore is. So if he died somewhere else, is he able to return and haunt where he wanted to be?
I think so.
That's what that suggests. You'd have to subscribe to that theory for this.
I do. That's in my ghost lore book.
The rules of your ghost.
I think you could choose.
Yeah, fair.
There's lots of reports of footsteps in the close when no one else is around. So stories like this are coming from staff who are there alone. It
must be pretty spooky working there.
I would think so. I would love to pick their brain. I really wish we'd had time to go, because I would happily go back. They also report voices that don't have any explanation for being there because no one is there, but they can hear people talking in other parts of, I don't want to say the building because it's not the building.
No.
But it's all underground.
It does feel like one giant building because it's underground.
But it isn't. But they hear voices from other parts and then they go there and there's no one.
I mean, does it become a building because there's 4 walls and a roof?
Oh, we don't have time to get into that now. There's a chimney in the close where some visitors have claimed to hear scratching coming from inside the chimney, as if something is trying to get out.
That would terrify you, wouldn't it?
And stories claim that there was a child chimney sweep.
That's just what I thought.
Who died in the chimney. Because that was something that happened sometimes.
Yeah.
Because kids would get stuck in chimneys and then they would suffocate. That is a thing.
Yeah, I was thinking Victorian chimney sweep when you said that.
Well, that's the story. And people hear just this little...
Very spooky.
People have also seen a woman in black. She's wearing a long black dress and she just wanders around the close. Don't think she talks to anybody. She doesn't really interact with anyone. She's just wandering around. And some people think that this is Mary King.
Oh, yep, very nice.
Wandering the close that bears her name.
Yeah.
But I wondered if it was Alison Rough.
I feel she'd be more not
Angry?
at peace. Yeah.
Maybe.
Because, I mean, it sounds like Mary King had a great life, really.
So why would she haunt?
Yeah, why would she come back and just wander around? I don't think... I can't see why that would happen. So yeah, I think Alison Rough.
Right? It's more likely. Another ghost that's been reported on the close is supposedly Major Thomas Weir, who we could have a whole episode about. I can't get into him. Weir lived in Edinburgh, and all I'll say is that he was sentenced to death for bestiality, incest and adultery, as well as Satanism, witchcraft, and, all of that stuff.
That's not where I thought we were going.
Nope, he was branded the Wizard of West Bow.
Ooh. He sounds grim.
Now, what's interesting, why I bring up his story at all, because we could have a full episode about him. The story about him is insane.
We're going to go into it.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Because he was convicted later in life. He was an old man.
Oh, really?
And he confessed to these things.
Oh,
He'd had an illustrious military career.
Yeah.
And then this.
And then became a nut job.
So it's a whole thing. And he had a wizard staff that was burned and everything. It's a whole thing that we do not have time.
Focus, Eilidh.
I'm trying, but it's so hard. A photo was taken by the people who run Mary King's Close.
Oh, yes.
They have cameras in the location, basically to make sure that everything's turned off, from what I read. It's an infrared camera, I think, so they can take a photo using the camera and make sure everything is locked up and closed the way it should be.
Yeah, fair.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, because it's so big and it would be such an effort to get down there. That's what they do. And they believe that they've taken a picture of the Major using this camera.
Oh, fuck.
When no one else was there.
Do you have the photo?
I do, but I'm going to tell you about it first.
Okay.
And I'll try and remember to share it somewhere. It was taken in May 2008, so a little while ago. Here's the story. And this is all from a news story about the photo. At around midnight on Saturday the 10th of May 2008, the general manager at Mary King's Close, Stephen Spencer, activated the infrared camera to check that the computer system had been switched off for the night. The camera is static, so it doesn't move, and was installed just a couple of months ago to take photographs of tourists as a keepsake for them to take home with them. With me?
Very nice.
Stephen certainly got more than he bargained for. Not only was the system still on when it shouldn't have been, but a large ghostly image was captured, apparently standing in front of the archway.
Ugh.
Mary King's Close spokeswoman Lisa Helsby said, "There's a trigger for the camera on the wall, and we usually press it last thing at night to check that everything has been switched off properly." We'd had some events for the Ghost Fest on this particular night, and when they'd finished, Stephen pressed the button before coming back up into the office.
Ghost Fest.
It's such a good name, right? He was the only person down there and wasn't in the shot himself, so it was a total surprise when the image came through. If everything had been switched off properly, the photo wouldn't have been taken at all, so it was a complete fluke. It's not been tampered with or altered in any way. It's exactly what was taken at the moment in time. It definitely looks like a ghostly person in the distance, and we've had quite a few visitors who have mentioned seeing a heavy-set figure in that location before.
Ooh.
You ready?
Oh, what have we got here? What have we got here?
I'm not going to tell you anything, I just want you to look at it cold.
That's a pretty spooky photo.
So there was no one there. There should be no one in that photo.
Yeah. There's a weird... for those who haven't looked it up, it's a weird, ghostly, see-through, kind of misty figure. Very tall, screaming face, long hair. That's what I can see anyway.
Well, see, that's interesting because I didn't see a screaming face when I looked at it.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't see a face at all.
Up at the top? Yeah, I can totally see someone going, ah!
And that's your suggestion. I didn't say a word. Pretty creepy.
It's pretty creepy. Very ghostly. It's everything you'd hope for a ghost picture.
It's a white spectral figure.
Ah, see, that's all the words I didn't have. You summed it up so much better.
That is my job. No, I'm not seeing screaming, but I
fair
do
enough.
see a figure. It's a very clear head and shoulders, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see a full, body, feet.
Pretty creepy, though.
Very creepy. Very good.
I actually have a couple of other pictures for you
Oh?
that were taken a bit more recently, but it's by people who have visited the close. So I'm going to show them to you now. There's one here that I have taken from hauntjaunts.net.
Hauntjaunts.
And this was featured on STV News, which is a Scottish news channel. It's a group of people they're getting their photo taken by the camera that took that image.
Oh, yep.
They're in the same spot. But the claim is that there's a person standing at the back who wasn't part of the group.
Ooh, hit me up. Oh, I mean, there's definitely it definitely looks like there's a person there.
Mm-hmm. So there's two photos.
Yep.
And there's a person in both who wasn't on the tour.
Well, now that's weird, isn't it? And it's two different photos.
Yep. But it looks like the same person.
Yeah.
And you can't really see them as well as you can see everyone else.
No, it's pretty weird. There are some other little like light spots on the pictures. So it's not the best camera, but pretty spooky. Looks like a blonde woman to me. Mm-hmm. Like, without you telling me she's not supposed to be there, I wouldn't have thought anything of it, because it just looks like there's a woman standing at the back.
Well, yeah, it just looks like she's just in the photo, but you can't make out her face. I feel like you can make out the faces of the other people much better.
Yeah, her face is blurrier.
And it's two different groups, and it does look like the same person. Same build, same hair. It's creepy. The next one I have for you, to me, is... I don't know if I like it. It's from last year, and it's a TikTok video that was posted by Old Edinburgh.
Is it one of the ones where it's just a person in a sheet runs past?
No, I really like them though. No, this is the people who run this TikTok account. The people who run this TikTok account were able to go down into Mary King's Close first thing in the morning before anyone else was there.
Cool.
And I have struggled to see what it is that they're talking about.
Okay.
But apparently at one point, under one of the archways, you can see a figure that shouldn't be there.
This is the most haunted problem we have a lot, where they're like, did you hear that? And we're like, no.
Yeah, so it wasn't spotted by the person who posted the video initially, but people started leaving comments saying, anyone else see the tall man under one of the archways, or was it just me? And they talk about seeing a shadow walking by a door. So I have the video for you.
Please.
I don't know what you're going to make of it, because I can't really make it out. But it's a pretty cool video, because they're in Mary King's Close alone, just walking around.
Yeah, that's pretty nifty.
Which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I didn't see any ghost.
I didn't think you would, but I wanted you to watch it.
Cool video, though.
A very cool thing to get to do. I'm very jealous. And I'll share it so that you guys can make up your own mind. Maybe you can see it and I can't. I couldn't make it out.
No, I can't. I can't see anything. I always find it funny in these places that they've had to add in the neon like fire exit signs.
They look a bit out of place, don't they?
Yeah, it was the same in the Edinburgh Vaults when we were there. And they're a good idea, because you need to know where the exits are. But
oh yeah, 100%.
they're always so jarring.
If you're going to get lost anywhere, it's going to be in Mary King's Close and the Edinburgh Vaults.
Yep.
Because Jesus Christ, it's just a labyrinth.
Yeah, big time.
The last photo I have for you was taken by possibly their paranormal investigators from Durham. But I think they have the best name
Oh, yeah?
that I've ever heard of a ghost hunting team. Because they are called the Spectre Detectors.
Oh, superb. Bravo.
And frankly, I wish we'd thought of it.
I know. Oh, damn it. We're stuck with generally spooky now.
The Spectre Detectors.
The Spectre Detectors.
So if you guys ever hear this, if you listen, bravo.
Good job.
Just perfect name.
Superb.
It just rolls off the tongue. Spectre Detectors.
The Spectre Detectors.
You can have that on a badge. So they were visiting Mary King's Close. And they claim to have captured a photo of a figure that wasn't there at the time and appears to be a man wearing a top hat.
Oh, very good.
Which is interesting, because you saw a picture of a ghost earlier this season and thought he was wearing a top hat, and I did not.
I did indeed.
So here it is.
Okay, yep, I can see the bit they're talking about.
So can I. I can see a top hat.
There's a discoloured area that kind of looks like a person with a hat, possibly top hat. Really, if you squint, you can really see it.
Because the hat looks top hat-ish, I think. So yeah, what do you think about that one?
That one's less compelling, because it kind of looks I'd be curious to get a reference photo.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you need from all of these, eh?
Yeah, because it's like a discoloured bit that kind of makes the outline of a person. But it kind of looks like that thing where just people find faces and things.
But see, when you look at the photo that was taken by the people who work there, I'm far more intrigued.
Yes, yeah.
Partly because they see it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So they know what's normal.
Well, they probably have things that are like, oh, that always freaks me out because
Yeah.
like that thing looks like a person.
So when we turn the lights off, the shadows look like that. You know,
Yeah.
they know all of these things. So for them to see something...
And go, wait, what's that?
Yeah, I'm more inclined to believe that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I like that photo. I'm unsure about the others,
Yeah.
but I wanted to show them to you. Do you want to share your own ghost adventures in Mary King's Close, Kieran?
Sure. I had something that some would say was a ghostly encounter in
Kieran got attacked by a ghost.
in Mary King's Close. Because my family, we were on holiday down in Edinburgh, and we went to Mary King's Close for a nice day out, probably in the October holidays, because it was very cold. When I was like, I don't know how old I was, 13, 14-ish, maybe 15.
You weren't 15, because that's when we met.
Oh, right enough, so maybe I was younger, 10 to 12, around that, early teens. And we were going around the attraction, and we got to the place where there's a statue of the plague doctor, and he's lancing the boil of a small child. It was a small boy who was close to my age, and this boy's like screaming in agony, and the woman's telling you all about the story, as Eilidh just did, about how
the guides that take you around Mary King's Close are stupendous.
Yeah.
They dress in costume, they take on a character related to Mary King's Close, and they're very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And they're really good entertainers, so they tell the story well.
Mm-hmm. So she's telling this story, and I'm sitting there watching this, getting just totally freaked out because it was close in age to how old I was, thinking about this, and I fainted and hit the deck. Full on, from standing to on my face.
Mm-hmm. I'm so surprised you didn't break your nose.
So is everybody else. I don't really know how I didn't break my nose, because there was no artful, like, swoon. I was just standing, and then I was on my face. Yeah, and then I woke up, and I looked at everyone's shoes and went, why is everyone standing in my bed? Oh wait, where am I? And had to be escorted out through the, like, back exit of Mary King's Close with my mum, which was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. And the woman said, like, oh wow, you're my first fainter. And I went, well, that's weird, what does that mean? And so maybe I got ghosted.
Well, you fainted in one of the rooms where multiple people faint.
Yes.
That's a common thing that happens in that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we went, they've installed a fan in there because so many people pass out. And then you started laughing. So yeah, like I passed out in here and I was horrified.
Yep.
Because you got piggybacked by a ghost and you fell down.
Fucking taken down.
Yep.
Just dump tackled.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think, because this was winter, so I had like a big coat, scarf, hat, gloves, and we were in there, and I didn't take any of it off. And my dad kept saying to me, like, are you not warm? Do you not want to like take that off? I'm like, no, I'm fine. And then I think I just overheated and collapsed because it was quite warm under there, strangely. So there you go. I fainted in Mary King's Close.
Mm-hmm. Claim to fame.
But like fucking manly fainted though. No, just fell onto my face, bruh.
What's funny though is that if they sell them, you wouldn't have been able to walk away with "I survived Mary King's Close."
Yeah, I didn't. I could have. I got attacked in Mary King's Close
because you had to be escorted out.
I did, by a woman who had to pick up her skirt to like hurry over to me because she was in costume.
Yeah, they're quite elaborate costumes.
Yeah, I got escorted out by the nice woman.
I feel for the people who have to guide around places like that when that happens. So that must be really hard.
Yeah, she had to.
Because you'd be so worried.
Radio.
You know?
I had dirt all over my face because I just hit the deck.
Such a shame.
Yeah, but I don't know how I didn't break my nose.
Maybe you had like big hat and scarf and stuff on, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did you have your hood up?
Not my
Were
hood
you
up.
in a puffy jacket? So I'm wondering if that was on your forehead. Maybe it stopped your face.
Yeah, I think I had a hat on though.
you know?
Yeah.
If it was something chunky.
Because it hurt, like, the bridge of my nose and my, like, under my eye hurt.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a black eye either, so I must have kind of done the worm.
Maybe.
Like,
well, yeah, maybe you
oozed
bent at the knees
Yeah.
as you fell.
I
So
like-
you didn't fall straight down. You, in kind of a, like, yeah, like a worm.
Yeah, like, pitched forwards.
Such a shame.
Yeah. But I never thought it was anything spooky. Other people have thought it on my behalf, so you can as well. At home.
So on that day, you were a ham toasty.
I mean, it's quite a funny thought. I just got, like, by a ghost, you know?
Yeah. Maybe it was the ghost of the kid. Like, fuck you in
Fuck
your nice
you.
cozy jacket with
Yeah.
both parents, you dick.
Yeah, oh, you don't have to have the plague. Yeah, really, really grossed and freaked me out.
Yeah. Well, even when we went back, you still had it a little bit,
Yeah,
looking at it.
Just thinking, like, oh yeah, looking at the big, like, plague doctor mask. Yeah, I was looking at it, just went, nope, and hit the deck.
No. So yes, that's Kieran's Mary King's Close story,
It is indeed.
which I think we've talked about before, but it bears repeating again for this
yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
It fits.
So there you go. I thought it was fairer since I don't find it spooky, so I can't give it the right spooky emphasis. I can call it being a, like, Thrawn teenager and be like, no, I'm not going to fucking take my coat off.
Maybe you had like a really babyish t-shirt on. You didn't want people to see.
Maybe. Can't really remember.
Well, I have one ghostly encounter left to share with you, and I've saved the spookiest and most famous for the end because it's the end of the episode and the end of the season.
I'm excited.
This happened in 1992, and I feel like you probably know what I'm talking about already.
I do indeed.
And if you're listening and you've heard anything about Mary King's Close, you've probably heard parts of this story before. This happened before the attraction opened to the public, because that didn't happen until 2003, I believe. But people were exploring Mary King's Close and historically examining it before the attraction opened.
Yeah, that
I
makes
imagine
sense.
to make it fit for the public to enter.
Yeah,
Because there's only certain parts the public are allowed into. Some of it you can just look into. You can't actually go in. It's not safe.
it must have been a lengthy process to get it public ready. Mm-hmm. Would have been cool to be there before it was an attraction, though.
Oh, it'd be incredible.
Just going around with a torch.
And just the history.
Yeah.
Oh, it gives me the chills. A woman called Aiko Gibo visited Mary King's Close in 1992. Apparently, as part of a movie that she was making, she was a part of, that was about haunted places across Britain.
Cool.
She was a Japanese psychic, a pretty famous one. She had been on TV and she had written several books. One of them you can get, one of them's readily available, about finding your spirit guardian.
Oh, yeah.
I looked into briefly. Apparently, her abilities were first noticed when she was about 6. And from then on, she was performing spiritual readings for people.
Ooh.
And one of the things that she did that I read was identifying your following spirits. So the ones who were involved in your life and were trying to get your attention.
Oh, interesting.
She would tell you who they were and how to appease them. So she would help people if they were being haunted or negatively impacted by spirits. She would tell them how to pacify them.
Imagine you've got this problem and you're, like, confiding in your friend that you think